Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. It's Tuesday, November the 2nd, 2021. My name is Kerry Holzman, and welcome in. And today, I've just got a lot of work to catch up on, and I thought I'd just turn the cameras on and just let you see what I do. A lot of times, this work is done off camera, and it's done off camera so I can focus on the work and not get distracted. I want to finish up where we left off last night. I had a challenging day yesterday, so I just sort of called it a night, and everything's more or less exactly as it was here on the bench. And then this would be a typical day at an office where you're going to a workbench. If you're a real working technician, you traditionally have a bench that is assigned to you, and things you don't finish on that day will be likely untouched exactly the way you left it. So when you come into work, whether it's over a weekend that you've let it sit, in the best workplaces, nobody touches your stuff and everything will be exactly as you left it. Now, some workplaces require you to clean up your bench, but generally speaking, it's rather uncommon because customers don't go back there, so it doesn't matter if it's a mess. However, the problem is if you have some coworkers who take the liberties of using your tools or borrowing some of your stuff while you're away, you may find your stuff has been moved around or is missing. And that happens in some workplaces. But one of the benefits I have here is I'm the only one working, so everything stays as I've left it, and it allows you, the viewers, to continue on this story arc from where we left off without a lot happening off screen. So yesterday, after I got the Noctua cooler installed, as promised, I went and filed my return and left my review of Noctua's, what I feel is a very unwise decision to manipulate this cooler and not change the model number or reflect it in any way. There's a number of viewers out there that have, nicely offered some suggestions, but it's clear to me that they have no idea what they're talking about. So, while I appreciate the intent, I assure you, everything I'm telling you is factual and verifiable. If you want to spend the money and buy the cooler, you'll see for yourself. What Noctua says and what Noctua did are two very different things. And if you have to believe one of us, how forward-facing is Noctua? You know what I'm saying? Like, you guys can see me every day. You can go back 13 years in my history. I have no reason to hammer on a manufacturer unless, for me, it's a big disappointment, and I want to let all of you know. It's not a misunderstanding on my part, I assure you. So, in any event, I appreciate the kind words and suggestions. The reality is I'm just not going to use this cooler, and I didn't test this cooler to see that it's going to function as well with the different mounting mechanism. So what I need to do right away, because I have other work to do, this was already supposed to be done, today I'm going to run Prime 95 on this for 20 minutes and make sure we're not going to exceed 85. I don't think it's going to be a problem, but this is a 9900K under there, so it will get hot. It needs good cooling, and we'll see what it does. Also, I want to erase the Windows 10 installation on the M.2 drive, and we'll just load up the Windows media, the USB installation media I have. It will just delete all the partitions, and that's all that has to be done. It can be set aside. It can be mounted into a 200R with a 500 watt power supply. What I have here is a 430 watt power supply that I'm using on the bench for testing. But what the customer is actually going to get are three machines that are exactly identical. Same motherboard, same RAM, same processor, same cooler, same M.2, same case, same power supply, all three, so that support for this customer will be easier on me. I'm not really doing this for the customer. I'm doing this for me to make my life easier when I get the call 4 years from now about some expansion or something they need to do. Also, the motherboard that's over here is an old board. It's an old, what is this? It's an Asus Z87 Plus, several years old. And that'll probably be recycled into a giveaway here. Maybe after the holidays, I'm not sure yet. We'll just have to see how time goes. I have a number of processors that I ordered from Amazon. These are Core i5 10600Ks. These are returned processors. They normally sell for $230 to $250, but these were $199 a piece, shipped from Amazon warehouse. So I have that peace of mind if anything's wrong or I need to return them for any reason, Amazon's got my back. So I need to test these and make sure they're okay while I'm in the return period. So I've got another motherboard set aside that's a B460 HD3, and we'll check these out. And then I still have 3 more processors over here, which I'm not even sure what they are right now. I'll get to these later. When I set them there, I had a reason. I just can't remember what the reason was. So these might be for upcoming builds. They might need testing. But what I know for sure is these two 10600Ks, I need to just make sure they fire up. It'll only take a minute. I think the board is already prepped with Windows and everything. So as long as I can install these, slap a cooler, real quick, basic OEM cooler on it, no thermal compound, just to see that it boots up and recognizes these chips correctly. And then those we'll use on future builds utilizing the same motherboard, a B460 HD3. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of those brand new in a box. Been sitting here for about 4 or 5 months now. So I've got to get those done. Now, thank you, by the way, to, let's see, John Craig with a 5-pound contribution. He says, at last, finally, I've caught a live stream. You caught a live one. Thank you, John. And Bob Connors with a $25 contribution. He says, I hope your day has gone better than yesterday. Well, we're about to find out, Bob, but I'm certainly in better spirits. I'm not defeated. I just had to get back on the recharger, so I got a good night's sleep, got my batteries charged, and I'm ready to go at it again. This is the story of my life. There's a time when when it's appropriate to weather the storm and push forward because time is of the essence. And then there's a time where you go, I'm going to just kind of find some shelter, wait for the storm to pass, and then reemerge. And so it's really up to my own discretion, my own judgment as to how I want to approach these challenges. And sometimes it feels like I've weathered one storm, then I weathered another storm, and now here comes another storm, and it's still the same day. And I think, maybe this wasn't a good day to travel, right? With all the storms, I thought when I got through the first one, I was good for the rest of the day. And then the second one, what are the odds that there's going to be another storm? And then there's the third one, and you go, you know what? It's just not my day today. So I'll just go ahead and try and make the best of whatever cards life deals me and then decide accordingly what is the best solution for me in order for me to get my job done and to not break myself. I certainly have the willpower to go to a point of passing out, and it's my own self-control where I am finding and determining my limits on a daily basis when that's being challenged. And there's some days where I can go further than other days depending on what other things happened earlier in the day, or perhaps even whether or not I got a good night's rest the night before. And that's just part of, again, something a hobbyist or an enthusiast may not encounter. This sort of, I wouldn't call it defeat, but it is definitely a required level of self-awareness so that you don't work yourself to death. There's nothing stopping me from working 24 hours a day other than me. And that's just not sustainable. It's not healthy. And the same is true in the opposite side of things. Because I'm self-employed, I can go a whole day and not do anything and get no work done. I can stay in bed all day if I want to. But for how long? How long can the bills go unpaid? How long can the dishes go unwashed? How long can the laundry go? How long can the garbage can fill up? How long can everything start to get out of control? And then depression sets in when you feel overwhelmed and have a lot of anxiety that everything that's now grown out of control is beyond your control. And if I find myself in a situation where that's being introduced to me, that somebody else is handing off their problems that are a result of neglect, my attitude is to just chip away at it. So if I'm going to make a carving of a sculpture out of a rock, you know, if we're looking at Mount Rushmore took years and people died making that. But it starts with a hammer and a chisel, and you just start chipping away, just every day, chip away a little more. And everything you chip away is less you have to chip away later. And I just see it, I break it down into whittling. Remember whittling? You take a stick and you knife and you just start to scrape at it, and you can carve it, or you can do something simple like sharpen it into a spear. It can be extraordinarily tedious, and it's important, if I want to continue to do this day after day, week after week, and year after year, that I don't injure myself in the process, and that I don't break myself physically or mentally through the labor that's both physical and mental, that's nonstop. So what you saw yesterday was me saying, okay, that's my limit for today. Given everything that happened off camera that you weren't privy to, that was it for me. And I just said, this isn't going to get any better. It's only getting later. I should probably take some time for me. And that's what I did. I don't need a lot of time. I just, you know, needed to have a good night's rest and a little me time. And here I am, back at it again and continuing where I left off. And before you know it, I will have all of my backlog complete. And each thing I do today is one less thing off my to-do list. Whether I get a lot done or a little done, it's still progress. And I will maintain that until I'm caught up. So that's the attitude that I have to be sustainable, and it's how I've been able to stay in business for over 30 years. I see a lot of people, they give up way too easily these days, in my opinion. Way too easily. Things get a little difficult, they throw in the towel, they walk away, and that's okay. Maybe they're not cut out for that kind of work. But I just think, you know, you are capable of doing incredible things and seizing amazing opportunities if you allow yourself to make the sacrifices that potentially lead to those rewards. When those rewards happen to me, I'll let you know. But I will tell you, I love what I do. And as long as I can keep doing this, as long as I can pay my bills, I'm a happy guy. So what I want to do first, I think, since we have Windows already installed on here, is let's fire it up. Let's run Prime 95 on here. And I've set up camera 3, which I haven't been using. So this is the camera 3 angle. So when I turn everything on, you can see the boards running. You don't have to take my word for it. And I guess we're going to start right there. We'll bring up the HDMI input, which is this screen, which I will minimize. Whoop, that's not the right window. We'll minimize that right up here, I think, maybe over here. You know what? Maybe we can even take camera 3 and put that in the other corner. Let me think. That's just going to cover my face. Let's put it over here. How about that? Making this up as I go. See if we can make this a little bit bigger, a little more visible. Stretch that out a little bit more. Okay. And we'll stretch that one out a little bit more too. All right, so I have to stand this way. Okay, now we've got a couple of camera feeds happening here. No signal is basically because this machine, as you can clearly see, is not turned on. So let's go ahead and give it some power, fire it up, let it boot into Windows, and then I can load Prime 95 and we can start that test. Try to keep everything as transparent, as honest as possible. Even my opinions, which are oftentimes strong opinions, but it usually is because something is requiring me to do more work or take on more liability than I agreed to. But now that I've agreed to it, I don't have a choice, and it upsets me. So like this cooler, this really upset me if you couldn't tell. The good news is because this cooler upset me so, Scythe now has the black edition of the Mugen 5 out. It's $10 more. And I went ahead and ordered 5 of those. And I was able to afford that thanks to your contributions. You can see the money that you contribute in Super Chat or through PayPal or in Amazon gift cards is going right back into the channel so that I can continue to make these videos. I don't have any builds that are going to require those scythes that are scheduled for anybody in particular. but they may end up being used on giveaways or on some pretty heavily discounted systems that may be an opportunity for you to buy. And of course, with the money that I make from that, goes into buying more parts and making more videos. So the whole thing's a big circle, goes around and around. And we'll see where that leads us. But in the meantime, here we are, we're up and loaded into Windows, and I'm gonna make this Windows screen bigger for me. It'll stay the same for you because I need to see a little bit better detail. And I guess I'm gonna start with my utilities flash drive, which I have right here, and I'll plug it into one of these USB ports here. And I want my PC testing software, and I gotta use the right mouse, should be this one. PC testing software, I want Prime 95 26.6, and I want HW monitor. This is the same testing process that if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you recognize it's always the same. If I change it up, it renders all previous comparisons useless. So the testing has to be the same until such a point that it becomes irrelevant. But when that happens, then all the previous test results are no longer anything I can fairly compare. So here with the temperature HW monitor running, we can see that we've got 16 threads on this 9900K, and we want to pay particular attention to the 8 cores, and we want to watch this right side here. We want to see this maximum stay below, at 85 or below 85 degrees centigrade. I always say centigrade, Celsius, it's the same word. Anyway, we'll go over to Prime 95. We're going to go ahead and get this started. I leave everything at default settings. All I'm going to do is click OK and let it run and put this window on top so it's in focus. I'm going to come over here to my smartphone and I'm going to start my timer so I know when 20 minutes has passed. And we'll bring up the stopwatch, and there we go with that. And we're off to the races now, and we'll see how well. I expect this Noctua cooler to perform exactly as the previous editions, even though they've made profound and significant major changes to the installation method. And I'm just very concerned that that's going to affect the efficacy of the cooler. It remains quiet. If they would have made the heatsink a little bigger, I would have been happy about that. Okay, that would have been fine. But changing that mounting technique has rendered it a much more labor-intensive process, and it opens up lots of ways to make errors, lots of ways to make mistakes, especially from novices and even from professionals, right, that are just simply not familiar with it. The ability of putting the wrong standoffs on it, the ability of flipping the back plate around accidentally, the ability of not putting the screws in correctly, or the little C clips that hold it in place, breaking. There's all different ways they have introduced a failure of the installation that would not be obvious. You would get it installed and it would run, it just would not work well, it wouldn't cool well, and you'd be puzzled. It wouldn't make any sense to you. So in any event, we'll just go ahead and let this run, and we'll keep an eye on it, and we'll watch those temps. And while we're waiting, since there's really nothing I can do until I see the results of 20 minutes of, pedal to the metal, hardcore, computational processes happening right now on both the CPU and the RAM, I'm happy to entertain any questions you might have. I also want you to know that I was recently contacted. This is now the second time that a company has contacted me claiming to be from a major company, which they are not. There is a trend happening that all YouTube content creators should be aware of, where the scammers are now impersonating manufacturers, offering to sponsor your videos in exchange for like showing a video clip. And what they seem to be doing is grabbing a video clip from the company. It's a legitimate video clip. But usually when a company contacts you and they want you to show a video or what we would call assets, they provide those to you from their own company servers. And so your first warning sign is they're saying, okay, they introduce themselves. Would you be interested? You say, yeah, I'm interested. They say, okay, download these files. And they're sending you off to file sharing websites or sites that are used for transmitting large files too big for email that have nothing at all to do with the company. Now, I've never experienced any company ever doing that. So, of course, that raises a red flag. So the first time they said they were from HyperX. And I emailed the folks at HyperX because the file links were all pointing to file sharing sites or file distribution sites. Whenever you want to email something to somebody and it's too big, the names of these sites are eluding me, but you know what I'm talking about. You can send sites send big files anonymously. And out of curiosity, I wanted to see what it was. And I opened it up and Malwarebytes freaked out. And inside of it was a legitimate video file from HyperX, but also was a virus file. So I didn't extract it. I got what I needed. Reached out to HyperX. They said, yeah, we don't know this email. We've never heard of it. Don't trust it. And the email came from a domain, hyperx.company. So apparently .company is a new or fairly new domain. I'm not exactly sure. Forget what that's called. Third level. Anyway, the other day I got one claiming to be from Asus, and they said, would you like to, we have a product we'd like to sponsor. Would you show a video and we'll pay you? But there was a sense of urgency, like, we need to know right away if you want to do this. Please respond right now. Now, professionals don't talk that way. So I already knew right out of the gate this wasn't real, but I wanted to play with it just to compare it to the HyperX experience. And the more we went back and forth when I had some questions, the more irritated they seemed to get. And I just said, well, send me the file. So once again, here comes a generic file sharing site with a zip file. And I'm like, okay. So I reached out to somebody I haven't talked to in a long time, and that's somebody I greatly admire in this industry. His name is JJ, and JJ has represented Asus for many, many years. And one of the highlights and one of the absolute thrills of working at Newegg, the shows I loved doing the most was when JJ was going to be the guest. Because I thought, you know, here comes a guy who's not a salesman. He's not a pitch man. He is a diehard nerd. And I mean, this guy can spout off historical facts, current facts, and everything from Wi-Fi standards, motherboard chipsets, RAM, NVMe, all kinds of storage, and differences between motherboards. No matter how minute those differences may appear to most of us, he can not only tell you what those differences are off the top of his head, but he can explain why. I love that. I love somebody who understands the subject matter of what they are supposed to be an expert on to a level that they can justify it. And it's pretty rare to run into those people. A lot of times, PR folks, in my experience, are spouting the company's script, for lack of a better word. They, you know, the engineers decided that, right? Or focus groups decided that. They don't have any real reasons that they can give you why, because they don't know. I have yet to encounter any memory of JJ saying he didn't know, but nobody knows everything. It's always been my challenge to do two things when I talk to JJ. One is to ask him a question he doesn't know the answer to with regards to motherboards, routers, anything computer related, which I have not been successful at. Even at lunch, just pick his brain, and it's just right off the top of his head. I'm blown away by that level of knowledge. And then the other thing is, you know, JJ's a pretty serious guy, so my goal was always to make him laugh. So I always like to see somebody who's so good at their job and they're so intricate and they're so detailed, just throw them off their game, try and spin them around a little bit, and then ask them the question. And I had JJ cracking up a couple times, and that I was like high-fiving myself, you know, good job, Kerry. So I had a great time with JJ. So I reached out to JJ because I haven't talked to him in a long time, and he's still doing what he's doing for Asus. And I said, hey, I just want you to know I got this email, and it can't just be me. So these folks are going around saying they're the company you work for, in the department you work for, and they're apparently trying to steal the credentials from YouTube content creators, and I want you to be aware of it. I don't know if there's anything you can do with regards to security or legal things you can do to shut them down, but at least if people reach out to you, other content creators reach out to you, know this is going on right now. And he responded, and we haven't talked in a long time, and I said, hey, maybe I can bring you on and we can catch up, talk about the new 12th gen stuff, talk about PCIe 5, talk about DDR4 versus 5, talk about some of the new routers you have. And clearly we won't be able to do all of this in one visit, but we'll do it remotely. I'll bring him on via StreamYard. And he seemed very open to the idea. So we'll work on getting something scheduled. And I look very much forward to having him here so I can continue to try and get an I don't know answer, because that's when I know I asked a good question, and continue to just have him just unexpectedly throw him off his game with something funny. So that's my goal. But ultimately, I really enjoy having him. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I'd like to do it live so you guys can also pick his brain. This guy is, if you've never seen him before, he's one of a kind, and a real pleasure to talk with him and to have his time, for me anyway. So I've never seen anybody like that. And he's so approachable, and he's such a nice guy, and he's so genuine. It's everything this channel's about. It's everything I'm about. And I'll let you know as that develops. And hopefully we'll be able to schedule some time. And again, hopefully more than once, because we have a lot to cover. Let me just check in over here. The computer just went to sleep. Let me wake it up. And let's see how we're doing on our temperatures. We've been running for, how long? Almost 10 minutes. And we've reached a max temp of 59 degrees, 60 degrees Celsius is our max. We're still 25 below my, when we hit 85, I get concerned. As long as we're below 85, I'm fine. Cooler seems to be doing a great job. We can scroll up and down in this window. If I grab the right mouse again, and we can make sure the processor's running full speed, 100%. It's turboing at 4.4. It's not supposed to stay at 4.4. Some people, they don't understand that. They think it's supposed to run at 4.4 consistently, and it is not. That was the big deal about the 9900 KS, is that it would run at 5 on all the cores. So here we are years later, and we're still not running at 5. But what it does is the chip turbos up as needed for processing demands, and it'll do that for a little bit and then drop back down. When overclocking it, you would force it to stay up there and work harder longer, which is really, really bad on the silicon. It increases the heat and reliability, and the VRMs and everything else, your power supply, are all being taxed heavily for just a little teeny tiny gain. So I don't advise it. I just don't think it's worth it. But hobbyists will do what hobbyists do. But if you did something like that in a corporate environment, you'd probably be shown the door. Slow and steady wins the race. And when I say slow, I don't mean crawling. 4.4 isn't crawling. The first processors I was working on ran at, well, gosh, I don't even know what an Atari or a TRS-80 Model 1 ran at, but it was single digits. It wasn't 100 or 300, let alone 4,400. It was like 2. My 286 ran at 12. So you can imagine from my perspective, 12 versus 4,400. That's a big, big jump. And to go from 12 to 300 was a big jump, like a Celeron 300. To go from 300 and into eventually like a Pentium gigahertz, you're at 1,000. Wow. Those are massive jumps. To go from 4,000 to 4,400 isn't much of a jump. And to maintain that 4,400 over a long period of time for that little teeny tiny benefit is really mostly an enthusiast activity. It doesn't really make sense to spend that kind of money and get so little return for it unless you're in an extremely unusual a job that you have that would demand that sort of performance to result in more productivity and more income, which that does exist. I've never ran into a client where that existed, but I know that there are system builders out there that specialize in really high-end systems for that kind of work. And they're about $12,000 because they've got to be warranted. And if the motherboard goes out of warranty, but the warranty is still with the builder, that's at the builder's cost. So all that has to be accommodated in the price. They're very expensive systems. But be that as it may, let me look in the chat, see if anybody's asked anything. And let's see what we have happening here. John wants to know if I worked on the pool last night. I did not work on the pool. That's still waiting to be done. Yeah. I was done. I was just like, I thought about it, but I didn't want to clear the counter. I have to work. I would have to take the pool vacuum out, bring it up on the counter after I drain all the water out of it, put a towel down because it's still going to drip. And I thought, you know what? I'm just going to leave everything out and pick it up the way it was. And so that's what I ended up doing. Thanks for asking. Tony Wallow with $4.99. Hey, Tony, thank you so much. Thank you for all your contributions and your support. It's very much appreciated. Bob Connor says it's snowing in northern Michigan. Hey, I would love to have it snow. You know how hot it is outside today? I've got the air conditioning running today. Wayne Muir with a $5 New Zealand contribution. Thank you so much. Thank you, Wayne. Make sure Wayne is blue here. AJ was saying top level domain. Thank you, AJ. Those were the words. I haven't used those words in years. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that .co or .com or .biz or .net, that dot whatever that's at the end of a URL, that's called the top level domain. Thank you for that. See, now JJ would have just right off the top of his head with no hesitation would have just spouted that out. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how one single person's brain can hold all that information. You can talk about the X57 chipset and he can tell you all about triple channel memory and all the specifics of the North Bridge and the South Bridge, and he doesn't have to look it up. No hesitation. It's inhumane. It's not inhumane. It's inhuman. Maybe JJ's part alien. XCDN Forces says, Carrie, do you remember the turbo button? I used to have one a long time ago. That 28612 that I had a turbo button. And if you push the turbo button, instead of running at 12, it ran at 16. Yeah, and you could keep it on full time, but some applications would run too quickly and they would, like some games, they would run so fast you couldn't play them. So there were occasions where you wanted that slowed down and you wanted that turbo off, but not because of heat or anything like that. Rick Lake said he had some snow where he is there yesterday. Master Singleton says it's as hot in Sydney, Australia as well. Yeah, but it's our winter time, right? In Australia, it's your summertime. It's supposed to get hot in the summer. It's not supposed to be hot in the winter. So right now, today in Phoenix, according to my smartphone, the temperature outside is 82 degrees Fahrenheit, which is, you know, a bit warm for November, don't you think? It's a far cry from snow, I'll tell you that. We're about 17 and a half minutes into our test. Let's switch back over. Well, I'm going to switch back over to a full screen view of what's happening over here. Let's see what it says. Our max temp so far is at 63. This is fantastic. So the good news is Noctua, and again, I'd have to compare it with the other edition or look back at some videos where I tested with the previous version of this cooler. These look like the coolest numbers I've ever seen from Noctua. So it's possible that they actually improved the way that it's connecting and doing it this way, which, you know, admittedly is a possibility. I just think for all the added labor, the best it was going to do was just maintain what it, you know, it'd be equal to what it was. But I'd have to go back and look at some previous videos and compare it. Or, you know what else I could do? I've got another motherboard set up. Maybe that's what we should do. I've got another motherboard set up with the exact same layout, same RAM, same processor, but the previous edition of this cooler. Basically, every Noctua U12S I have is the previous edition. This is the only one I have that is not. The other three are going back to Amazon because even if it cools better, that installation method is unacceptable for me. And now that I found that Scythe has the black version of the Mugen 5, again, it's $10 more, which is still $20 less than this. It's a bigger heatsink. I'd love to compare on a similar build how well it cools as well as noise levels. It's still the same fan, still plugged into the same motherboard. So our noise levels haven't changed. What has changed, and changed significantly, is that mounting technique. It's far more complex, as I mentioned, a lot more parts, a lot more opportunity to get it wrong and not even know you did it wrong. And that's just not what we've been accustomed to from Noctua. It's an unfortunate turn of events that the company decided to do this. Barry Russ contributes $2 and says, hello, Carrie and chat. Hey, welcome in, Barry. Thanks for your contribution. Appreciate that. John Williams says 85 in Arizona, 43 in Madison, Wisconsin. Yeah, well, you're getting close to snow time, aren't you? Sam Lazar says he's in Melbourne and that it's hot today. Yeah, well, we just talked about that. Rick Lake said, yeah, I had a computer way back when that had a turbo button. I mean, that compared to what I'm using today, man, what a difference, right? And then some people are still trying to make it go faster. But, you know, I just don't want people thinking that when you watch other content creators doing these impractical and expensive things that, you know, could potentially damage your equipment. Wake up, just keeps falling asleep. That's something necessary or required. It absolutely is not. That's a voluntary thing people are doing, and I think they should let their audience know that what they're doing is impractical, expensive, offers diminishing returns, and can cause permanent damage. I feel that disclaimer should be across all those kinds of videos, so people who are novices who don't understand can say, oh, okay, that's not something I have to do. That's something I may want to do if I want to pursue this, you know, high frequency pursuit. But it's very, very expensive. You know, I just saw a video posted the other day. A YouTube content creator killed their 12900K. I think it was a 12900. I think they were overclocking it, and or they delitted it and in the process smoked it. So that's about $700 right down the drain just for fun. I could think of a lot more fun I could have with $700 than that, but you know, it's a family-friendly channel. AJ Haverkamp says the Scythe Mugen has 6 heat pipes. Noctua only has 5. That's correct. Usually they count the heat pipes on each side, so the Noctua has 5 on each side. That would be 10. The Scythe has 12. Arnold Schmidt says 11 degrees Celsius here in Western Alberta. Hey, that sounds like Canada. Keep going up north. Gets colder and colder. And let's see, have we reached 20 minutes? Oh, we're at 22 minutes. Let me go full screen on this for you guys. We'll just take a look at this together. Here's our end results after 22 minutes. We're looking at a maximum temperature reached of 66 degrees Celsius. 66 after 22 minutes. We're running full speed. All right, you can see all the voltage cores. You can see the individual core temps, processor utilization at 100%. We can see that when we were idling, the processor dropped to 800 megahertz because it was just idling. It's currently at anywhere from 35 to 41 or 42, depending on the core. Different cores are capable of attaining different speeds. And then we see the maximum peaks that it hits temporarily for a short time, and that's completely normal. It is not supposed to stay here unless you're overclocking it and you're willing to sacrifice not only your electric bill, but money on your cooling and your power supply. So for a business, you want to leave this as stable as you can get it. It's got to be fast, but it's got to be stable. Now I'm going to move this over here a little bit so that we can watch these temperatures drop. Let's move this here. Let me close this window because we're done with that. And I'll move this here. Now I want you to watch our current temperatures, right? We're at 64, 62. That's what's happening right now, this row. And I want you to see how fast the CPU gets hot and how fast the CPU can cool down. I'm going to click this OK button right here. And as soon as I click this button right here, I want your eyes to go over here and watch this drop by 20 to 30 degrees almost instantaneously. Ready? Go. Now, if we didn't have such a high quality cooler on here, and make no mistake about it, Noctua is a high quality cooler. It's just not a high quality installation method that they used to have. Because it's a high quality cooler, it's got a nice fan with it, so you're not hearing any noise. If you have a cheaper cooler or an underpowered cooler, you would hear the fan speed up and hear the fan slow down as the temperature rises and drops. So one of the advantages of making sure you spend a little bit more for a good cooler is for, first of all, the purpose of cooling, but secondly, the noise, and third, the ease of installation. Generally speaking, more expensive coolers from name brands are typically easier to install. That's what we got accustomed to with Noctua, and that's why I'm so upset that Noctua reversed and went back to a more complicated installation method to make this cooler compatible with the upcoming socket 1700, which is required on a 12th generation Intel chip. I would have preferred Noctua came out with a different cooler for that, rather than try and repurpose an existing cooler, affecting every single other motherboard and chip this is designed to work for. So if it works with, 13 or 15 different sockets, they just made the 95% of those installation methods more complicated for 5% of the people who require that. I just don't think it was a smart move. So the good news is, for me anyway, I wouldn't have known about Sai's new Black Edition cooler, and I'm very, very interested in seeing how it compares, especially noise and installation method, and of course, cooling properties. But the Sai, the cooler, the actual heatsink is about twice as big. It's got a lot more surface area for heat dissipation. In theory, it should be a superior cooler every way. Installation, the amount of material you're getting for your money, and the only question will be, the quality of the fan. So in any event, let's go ahead and let me finish what I was doing here, which is the test is over. What I can do now is shut this down. So I'm going to make it full screen so I can see it, and I'll close these windows and power this down. There we go. You'll see the fan stop spinning, and I'm going to grab my Windows 10 installation media, and I'm going to wipe this M.2 drive, completely erase it, and return it back to the condition it was in when it came from the factory fresh out of the box. So we'll turn this back on again. So there's my power switch right here. Turn this on. I'm going to press F12 as soon as the gigabyte, right there, F12 over and over. It should offer me the option now to boot from the UEFI SanDisk USB flash drive that has my Windows 10 installation media on it. right? So it's right there, this one. So I'll just click once on that, and it's going to load the Windows 10 installation media. That'll just take a moment. And I go through this whole process no differently than a brand new build. I mean, technically this is still a brand new build, but I've already installed an operating system on it. It doesn't really matter what I select here, but for the sake of keeping everything consistent, we'll just keep selecting Windows 10 Pro, and I have to accept the license agreement, even though we're not even going that far. I still and always choose a custom install, and now we can see the 4 partitions that pre-exist on this M.2 drive that I've used in the past. Very lightly used. It was supposed to go to a different customer. We're going to just go ahead and erase that. It's just a clean install of Windows. That's all I did with it. And now you'll see that by deleting each one of those partitions, it now says drive 0 unallocated space. And hopefully you were able to see that large enough. But that's essentially all I have to do. I can go ahead and shut the machine off even at the power supply. Just cut the power, wait for this fan to stop spinning, and remove my flash drive. And that board it's like a factory new board at this point with no operating system. Now, if we want, well, my mind is on the subject matter of testing this version of the cooler to the previous version of Noctua Cooler. I can stop at this point just to run that test out of curiosity. But do know that I just erased everything on that M.2 drive. So if there was anything on it, it's gone now. And while it might be possible to run data recovery software on it, ideally you understand that what I just showed you is going to permanently erase all the data. So you know what to expect if you repeat what I just did. And the reason I show it is some people want to know how to do that. They might be giving away a computer to somebody and they want to make sure it's ready to be given away, that it won't have any of their stuff on it. And most people, don't mind me while I'm off camera, I'm getting the next board. Most people don't understand how to do data recovery. So it's not likely that a deeper level of data destruction is required unless you are giving or selling the computer to an unknown source or to somebody who is got that level of computer knowledge where that would concern you. So this board, although it looks the same, this is a different motherboard. This is one we built on camera a few days ago, last week, I guess. Mitch and I built these together. He built one, I built the other on Friday. Was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday show. And this has the previous edition of Cooler with the super easy installation method. There's no way to tell them apart, unfortunately. The box is the same model number. So there's no way to avoid it other than to choose a different manufacturer or accept that you're going to have to go through this more difficult installation process if you insist on using this cooler. As long as your expectations are being met, that's all I'm out for. I'm not trying to make a decision for you. I'm telling you what my decision is and why, in the hopes that it'll help you make the decision right for you. Whatever decision that is, I have no idea. Now I'm going to come around here and I'm going to plug in. We'll grab the not the USB, we'll grab the HDMI cable. And as I recall, I did not install any Windows on this. So let's just make sure that this powers up okay. Turn this on. There we go. Good. So it goes into the BIOS. They're all the same motherboard, same BIOS version. So here's my Windows 10. Turn this back off. Plug my Windows 10 into any blue USB port. These are really fast USB flash drives. They're not cheap. You can buy cheap flash drives all day long and think you're getting a deal. But I've seen flash drives of terabyte capacity that would take you 12 hours to fill with data. And a drive like this of a 1 terabyte capacity could fill the exact same amount of data in 90 minutes or less. So if somebody says, well, I don't transfer that much data, you wouldn't need a 1 terabyte drive. So it wouldn't matter how fast it was. Moving small files every once in a while completely negates the whole point of getting a fast drive. Because I'm installing Windows over and over and over again, if I can do that faster and I can get more done, I'll spend the extra money on the faster drive. Now, this one is not a 1 terabyte drive because that would be a waste. It only needs to be about 8 gigs or larger to make a Windows 10 installation media. This is a 16 gig. They don't even sell them anymore, but I bought a handful of them, and they were 4 times more money than everybody else's 16 gig. And they're also remarkably faster. So I was able to justify it because it does make me more productive and I can get more done in less time. I'm not out trying to find the best price so that I could turn around and waste my time and not make as much money. So be aware, not all flash drives are equal, and be particularly aware of very inexpensive flash drives. So we're going to start Windows 10. This only takes a minute to install. Yeah, these flash drives are called SanDisk Extreme. Thank you. Yeah. So once again, we're back over here. We'll go full screen just to go through this process together. And we make all the same choices that I always make. It's very, very repetitive. It's one of the best ways to learn. You don't sit down at a piano and crank out perfect Mozart unless you keep practicing and practicing and practicing. And so one of the ways that I use in education is through repetition, repetition, repetition. Once it gets drilled in and you've done it enough times, it becomes familiar. You become more comfortable. And again, we choose custom, we hit next, and that's it. Now Windows 10 is going to create our partitions, format them, and install Windows 10. But yes, if you're wondering why I get so repetitive, it's part of the learning process. You must keep doing things over and over and over and over to get efficient, proficient at them. And to set your expectations to reality. Once Windows 10 installs, we'll just quickly plug it into the internet. We'll grab some updates. And then beyond that, we'll go ahead and run Prime 95 on it for 20 minutes and we'll see what the difference, if any, is in our maximum temp. We reached a maximum of 66, so we'll just see how we compare to that. Of course, you can also rewind this live video if you want to roll it back to compare it as well, during or after the test. Someone in the chat was mentioning something about a PC health check. It doesn't do me any good to compare it. And in order for comparisons to be fair, you need to compare the same. So running a PC health check from Microsoft is no comparison to running Prime 95 and HW Info. And even changing the version of Prime 95 will change our results. Everything has to be the same or you cannot compare them. They're incomparable, rendering it useless. If you want to be able to make it useful, you need to start with a baseline system using your new testing technique and then start repeating that on all your other systems from that point forward. And you start again. All your other previous testing goes into the trash can. So I take my testing very, very seriously that it has to be exactly the same or don't compare it. It just doesn't make any sense to compare things that are not when we're doing test results, if the test is not the same test, then the results won't be the same results. Why would you expect it to be? And should you expect better results or should you expect worse results? Who knows? It depends on how you run your test and what test you're running. As long as the test always stays the same across all the platforms, we have a baseline and we know what's good and what's bad. There's a way to determine the results being favorable or concerning, but without anything to compare it to, it's just information. You're not really any better off with it. So I keep everything exactly the same for these reasons, and now we're finalizing our Windows 10 process here. Let me just adjust this window, and let me also make it full screen on my side so I can read it. And we'll go through this United States. Yeah, we'll go through these final questions. And US keyboard layout, no other keyboard layout. Skip the internet. So skip it. Got to tell it twice. For user, we'll just put user, no password. Whether or not I turn this on or off won't matter. This is all going to get wiped out anyway, but we'll just go ahead. Again, consistency and repetition for learning. So we always do it the same regardless. Now, well, that's finalizing. I don't have to wait any longer to pull out this USB. We're done with that. We were done with it after the first boot. That USB can be removed. Once Windows fires up here, I'll go ahead and plug the internet in and then grab the latest updates, and we'll go from there. Is this board in legacy mode? There's an easy way to check that. Usually there be 3 partitions on the drive if it's installed in legacy, and 4 partitions on the drive if it installs in UEFI. And I'll show you how to check that here. As soon as this is done doing what it's doing, we'll check it. If it's in legacy, we'll do it again, because I don't want to test it in legacy. Patrick says this board has a GPU release button. Don't all boards have a GPU, or he's saying it doesn't? Let me take a look. What's he talking about? GPU release button. There's typically a little release lever that holds a GPU, and it's pretty universal. And I don't think I've seen a board in a long time that didn't have one. So I'm not quite sure what I'm missing on that comment. All right, so we're at the desktop, and before we go any further, let's verify if we're in legacy or in UEFI mode. The way we'll do that, first of all, let me go ahead and make this full screen for everybody so we can see this detail close up here. HDMI input, full screen. And then what we'll do is run, gotta use this keyboard and mouse over here. MS Info 32, enter. That's not what I want. Close that. Let's try that again. MS Info 32. And the BIOS mode right here, and you can check this on your system, this one does say legacy, so nice catch for the viewers who saw that. Question is, why did it install in legacy mode? So very quickly, and this is not a big deal, but this, for me, when I'm selling systems, I don't want to sell 3 computers to a single client and have 2 in one mode and 1 in another mode. That could make support difficult. So what I'm going to do here is, there is a way to convert this, but I don't want to convert anything. On a new build should not require repair. So what I'm going to do is reset it, and we're going to go back into the BIOS. We'll restart. And then as soon as the Gigabyte logo appears, I'll press the delete key, get us into that BIOS. And I remember when I was with Mitch, I thought it would be a good idea to turn on the PTT, but knowing that Windows 11 may install without my client's permission, I decided I need to reverse that. So while I'm in the BIOS, I'm going to take care of that now, because it's something I need to take care of eventually. And we're going to go ahead and turn that TPP off. And that was under right here. Oh, it is disabled. Okay, so that's the TPM module that everybody's talking about. By leaving that disabled, that's built into the chip, by the way, and it has been built into chips for many years now. It's typically disabled in the BIOS by default. And with that disabled, Windows 11 will say your computer is not compatible. Therefore, it won't install automatically overnight without your knowledge one day. So for that reason, we'll keep that disabled. Everything else, we want to make sure we're in UEFI. And we are in UEFI. So what probably happened is I probably selected, when I was bringing up the SanDisk and I was choosing my boot options, there's usually two boot options on the Windows 10 installation media. One is just your standard boot and one will say UEFI. And my guess is I went through it just a little too quickly. So we'll save and exit the setup. And then as this restarts, I'm going to hit the power button right now. So you've got the no signal on your screen. And we'll put this back in the corner one more time, like so. Leave it a little bit bigger. Maybe it's easier for you to see. Grab my Windows 10 media installation USB. We're going to repeat this once more because, thank goodness, it installs in minutes instead of, you remember swapping out 3.5-inch floppy disks and getting everything installed. Thank goodness those days are long behind us. So just very quickly, once again, the system's going to boot. I press F12 on the keyboard to get to my boot options. Now I want you to look at these boot options. Pay attention because I wasn't paying attention. And it's so easy to work on a computer as long as you pay attention to the little details. So picking the right screw threads when you're putting a motherboard in, something I screwed up. When I realized when I was taking the system out yesterday, I put a wrong screw in and it just won't tighten with the wrong threads. Here you'll see SanDisk Extreme and UEFI SanDisk Extreme. If I want to install in UEFI mode, guess what? I need to boot in UEFI mode off of the flash drive. So now that should enable me to install in UEFI mode. So once again, we'll go through the same process I did on the other board by deleting the existing partitions, only instead of turning the system off, I'll let the installation continue from there. Now there is a way to convert from legacy mode to UEFI, but it's ingrained in my being that new systems, brand new computers, should run without repairs. So that because it's brand new and there's no data to be lost, it means I'm going to start over again and do it right the first time rather than find a shortcut to fix it. I wouldn't want to do that to my own system, and I wouldn't do it to a customer system. So we're back to custom install. You'll see there's the 3 partitions instead of 4. So that's how you know it was in legacy mode. That's another way to tell. And we'll go ahead and just delete all these. So we're back to 0 again, once again wiping everything off of the drive. And then we'll click next and allow Windows to install as it normally would. Hope that clears up any confusion. Thanks you guys for catching that. Appreciate your sharp eye to detail. Remember, this stuff is super, super easy so long as you pay attention to detail. That's all. That part of it doesn't require knowledge. It just requires paying attention. And it seems like we have so many distractions in this world. We're, as a society, paying less and less attention, even to ourselves. So just bear that in mind if you're going to build a computer. Slow down, pay attention, enjoy your build. And you'll see the same mistakes I make will be the same mistakes you'll make. And if you're aware of that and you're paying attention, you know to avoid those mistakes. And those mistakes, as you can witness on these live videos, they're nothing to fear. They don't cause any permanent damage. It just, you wasted a little time. But in exchange for that, you got a lesson. And if you keep having to redo things over and over and over, that lesson is going to stay with you a very long time until you start getting it right, unless you just enjoy repeating yourself again and again and again. Those are great, great lessons and a good investment to understanding the technology and moving forward with technology in a more successful way. So don't think that it's automatically a bad thing. Education, however we get it, is always good. And getting education through experience is incomparable. It's incomparable. There's just there's no replacement for experience. I mean, I could be showing you how to play a piano. Do you think you're going to sit down and play it like me? Actually, you probably would, because I'm not very good at it. But assuming I was a good piano player, assuming I was an excellent piano player, that's because I have played that song over and over and over again. Your favorite band, or whatever music you listen to, how long do you think that band practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced? And how many times has that band played that song in concert over and over and over and over and over? It's the same song, it's the same notes in the same order every single time. And when they make mistakes when they're playing, you'll never know. Yep. All right, so once again, back at the final setup here, which for me, again, I'm going to make it full screen for me, but I'll leave it up in the corner. So it's going to be a yes on this, and a yes on that, skip on that. Don't have internet, continue with limited setup. Username of user. Blank password. Turn everything off, put location settings. Accept. Not now on the Cortana. And now it finalizes those steps. And when this comes up, we'll run msinfo32 and verify we are in UEFI mode. Patrick says, I meant to say the motherboard has two GPU release buttons, the standard and one button for when a GPU is present. That's because it supports dual video cards. Okay, so let's just wait for this to finish here. And we'll run msinfo32 again at the search window there. And we're going to verify UEFI. Then I'll plug it into the internet, grab Windows updates. We'll reboot it once or twice, whatever that takes. And then we'll go ahead and run Prime 95. We'll compare that again to see if we reach that same sort of temperature result. This looks like the same cooler. It's marketed as the same cooler. It's sold as the same price. It's got the same fan, the same heatsink, but all the mounting hardware is completely different. Completely different. It's not a minor change. So that's why I'm very concerned. It's a pretty drastic change. So let's take a look at, let's go full screen on this one. That's good. Let's go over here and type msinfo32. And if we look here now, it says BIOS mode, UEFI. See how easy that is to check? Super easy, barely an inconvenience. Let's get this out of the way. Well, I'm not plugged in and don't have to deal with that nonsense. Hit complete, continue without signing in, and that ends that annoyance. And we can put this back where it was. Move that right over there. And let's plug the internet into it. So I've got an internet cable, an Ethernet cable laying around here somewhere on the floor. Is this it? Okay, I am done with my Windows 10 installation media, so that can be pulled out and put back where it goes. Plug Ethernet into that. And we're going to say no to this. We're going to come over here, hit the Windows Update, and check for updates. We'll let that run. I have to hit retry because it's already downloading updates automatically in the background, and it's a little confused. And it's saying we have a problem with the date and time. So it's not the original problem where it was installing in the background. It's saying there's a problem with the date and time. Date and time have a very critical role to play in your computing experience. It's always good to pay attention from time to time. Just check your date and time, make sure they are correct, because you can get all kinds of weird errors. So if I take this full screen just to show you a little closer, look at what date and time that says. That's obviously incorrect. And typically Windows will self-correct that. However, it's off pretty far, and I don't know why. But it's really easy to fix that. Actually, it looks like it already updated it on its own. And so I haven't touched anything. It's already doing everything on its own. So it just fixed itself. I like that. It was at 2019 earlier. So if it's too far back or too far forward, it can have an impact on browsing the web. Certain websites won't load. As you saw, Windows Update didn't work. Something as simple as checking the date and it's not uncommon to get a support call at a help desk at an office in a tech support department, where the customer says, hey, websites aren't loading anymore. You send a tech out to the workstation, and you got to imagine, like, Intel is a very large campus with 5,000 plus employees in one location, connecting 5 buildings together. So if you're in building 1 and your service calls in building 5, you've got to walk through building 2, 3, and 4. It's a lot of walking just to see the customer who created the support ticket. And I don't know if you've ever seen inside of a modern day corporation, but at Intel, it's like a giant parking lot. Each building and each floor looks like a giant parking lot. And what I mean by that is there's a sea of people sitting in cubicles, and there are poles that come down from a drop ceiling, and there's 4 people around that pole, each in their own cubicle, and the pole will be labeled just like a parking lot: G7, right? G8, G9, H8, H7, H9, I7, I8, I9. Letters designating one direction, numbers designating the other. So you find where they cross, that's your customer. They're one of those 4 in that cube. And you say, I'm here to help you. Are you the one that opened the help ticket? Right? Yes, I am. Oh, I see the date and time needs to be changed. Click, click. There you go. Have a nice day. And then trudge your way all the way back over to 1, close the ticket, move on to the next call. And that's a good day, right? If that's the worst you got to deal with, that's a good day. But it's very common to deal with simple problems like that in corporate America. And that's your job, right? When you work in the IT support desk, you're going to take care of simple stuff where things aren't plugged in. And you're going to take care of some real brain teasers as well, where sometimes it's faster to just get that customer another machine and then take the one that's the brain teaser, the brain puzzle, bring it back to the bench when you have more time, get it resolved, and then put it back as a spare and just keep everything rolling, keep that customer working, keep all the employees working, including the IT department. What have I missed in the chat room here? Let's take a look. Oh, Patrick's reference to the video to the clips on the motherboard. He says Patrick's in his own little world today. He's looking at stuff none of us are looking at, and he's making comments. We have no idea what you're talking about, Patrick. You're a cool guy, and I like you, but man, try and stay with us, okay? We're not here talking about another manufacturer. We're not here talking about another board. It's really not even anything up for discussion right now. But the board you're talking about, I guess, is an ASUS board, and if you want to talk about that when I have an ASUS board up for diagnostic or review, or if and when I can get JJ on the show and you want to talk about it, that would certainly be in line with our discussion. But I'm very confused when viewers go off on their own little tangent and nobody else is with you on this. This is something that I don't know what brought this up, and I don't know why you brought it up, but I have not seen the board you're talking about. I don't even think you could buy it yet. I don't think it's available for sale yet. And more importantly, I don't know why this particular thing catches your eye or why you're trying to draw attention to it and how it's relevant to what we're doing here today. But that will be something probably worth discussing when we're on that subject matter of boards from that manufacturer. Specifically, you know, if JJ comes to visit, he'll probably be promoting those new boards and telling us how wonderful they are. And so when we're talking about that, perhaps JJ could explain whatever this thing is that's drawing your eye better than I can. But I can't really click on your link in the middle of a live feed. It shuts down my YouTube feed, and I can't look at it right now. So that's why I'm like puzzled, like why you brought that up. But in any event, let me see what else I'm missing in the chat here. Windows 21H2 should be coming out this month, says Joshua. Correct. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be coming out. What day did they say? The 4th? The 6th? Can't remember now. Because it's coinciding very closely with the release of the 12th gen CPU, which is the 4th. So 2 more days, the 12th gen stuff should be released. But yeah, I'll certainly do a video on it as soon as I'm aware of it. Ben Laird says, why use Windows 10 when 11 is up and running? 11 is brand new. So any new technology, you're going to be introducing yourself to all different kinds of frustrations that come along with anything new. It needs time to be matured and polished. And so again, in a corporate environment, or even in a small business environment, if you were to just switch to an operating system, you'd have to be prepared to give a presentation to the corporation on behalf of, you know, let's say you're a manager of an IT department and you want to install Windows 11. You don't just wake up one day and decide that. It's not your company, it's not your business, and it's not what you're paid to do. What you'll do is a financial risk benefit analysis and a presentation in front of all of the executives that would explain what the cost of labor would be to install this new operating system, potential downfalls of any incompatible hardware or software, along with any potential downfalls in productivity and employee education matters that would also be absorbed into the cost of moving into this new operating system on top of the labor and the hardware previously mentioned. So if you're looking at a campus like Intel and you've got 5,000 people in one campus, you've got no less than 5,000 computers. And then you've got all different kinds of hardware and software, some custom written for the company, that need to be tested against that, as well as security and compatibility. And then you'd say, here's what it's going to cost to implement this. And then the question the executives are going to want to know is, thank you for that information. Now, what's the benefit of us doing this? What will we be able to do with Windows 11? How can our employees be more productive? And how can we as a corporation make back that investment that you're recommending? And that's the part where I hand it off to you, Ben, and I say, answer that question for me. Please tell me what benefit a corporation or any individual would have in the investment of time and potentially money dealing with potential security and incompatibility issues to gain what in return? What is the end result that makes that worth doing right now? And I've never met anybody who can answer that question. It seems people will install Windows 11 because it exists. And that will get you fired in a job. You will be dismissed summarily. It is very serious. And to take something so lightly as though there's no consequences is no way to run a business. This is an enthusiast mindset that doesn't understand scale and has no comprehension of cost as well as employee training, because Windows 11 has moved some things around. Now, this makes sense if there are benefits that reward the company financially. So if we make this investment, what are we going to get back? It's like you're trying to tell the company to spend $1.50 for $1. And they're saying, if we spend $1.50 and you give us $1, how can you make that recommendation with a straight face? We don't mind, like buying a stock in a company or buying cryptocurrency or making other investments. We want to know, what's our incentive to invest our time and our money into this thing that you're recommending? What's in it for us? What's our benefit? What's our payback? What's our return on investment? That's a question every company will ask you. And if you're unprepared to answer it, you probably won't be in your position very long, because you probably should have kept your mouth shut and not brought it up. Because what it did is it made you look like you have no idea what you're talking about, and you've just really embarrassed yourself. So if you have a reason that it's worth the time and the labor to recommend installing Windows 11 today, please share that, because just saying you should do it is pointless. You might as well say you should jump off a bridge. You might as well say you should drink poison. I don't know why anybody would take advice from any other person without any justification of risk-benefit analysis, especially something that people take as seriously as their computers, and especially a corporation that relies on being able to stay in business and help their customers and pay their employees. This gets really serious. It's not a joke. It's not a fun time in that environment. And being unemployed because you did something foolish, it's a bad reason to be unemployed, in my opinion. And if you wouldn't do that in a corporate environment, why would you do it in public? It makes no sense what would motivate you and why you would care if there's nothing in it for you. You like what you like, and that's great. I have no problem with that. You're free to run whatever operating system you want. But to suggest other people should like it just because you do shows your massive disconnect of how you could negatively impact somebody's life and not be held accountable for it because you're just random on the internet. And those types of reservations, those types of conditions or consequences should be your reservations from saying such things. If you said, I like Windows 11, that's great. But telling somebody else they should install it scares me that somebody might actually listen to you. That frightens me. But people are responsible for their own decisions. So if they want to choose to listen to some random person using my stage, my audience, something I built on for 13 years to promote their agenda, I don't like that. You have your own YouTube channel. You can go do that over there and spout your opinions and have a callousness of care for other people's consequences. But I don't do that here, and I would appreciate it if you didn't do that here either. Allow people the consideration and respect to understand changing your operating system could flip your life upside down. And if it does, give them your name and phone number so they can call you for help. And if you're unable to help them, that you will compensate them. And if you're not willing to do those things, then make sure, all of you, that before you take any advice from anybody, that you understand who it is that's offering the advice and understand what the return on investment is to make that risk worth doing. And then you will decide, you personally, if that risk and reward is worth pursuing or not pursuing. Windows 11 will become recommended, but it's just too early right now. I absolutely cannot recommend it. And remember, I have consequences as a business that an individual simply doesn't have. And I don't treat you guys any differently than I treat my clients. There's just too much of that on the internet, and it's disappointing to me to see such callousness. Pending, pending, pending. Everything's pending. Why is it pending? Let's grab this as well. Oh, we're still waiting on that one. Okay, that's good. BH Ringer says, today, Major Geeks reported a new Malwarebytes confirmation and invoice scam. Should I post a link to the article in the chat? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these scams are very common. It's not unique. This has gone on numerous times before. But as a reminder to people, this is still happening. I think it's a good idea to keep reminding people that this old 5-year-old scam is still running fresh today. Steve Sabaha said, Windows 11 has a new security boot, the TPM. That's always built in Windows 10. You just need to turn it on. Folks like Mike Smith have been turning on TPM and BitLocker for their clients for years. This is nothing new. Windows 11 is requiring it. Windows 10, it's an option. I don't see why that would be a requirement to justify the risk and investment and the retraining required to your employees for something you've already had this whole time. So again, I'm still at a loss. Next, anybody else want to try? In the chat, someone's saying it's weird when people say your computer's obsolete just because a new operating system is out that has a higher requirement when the old computer still works with no problem. The concern is security. Running Windows 95 or Windows 98 or Windows Millennium or Windows 7 would almost guarantee an infection and an identity theft if you use that online, even though it quote unquote works. It's just like trying to make a submarine out of a screen door. So what I would recommend is, as long as your operating system is current, and it's still supported. Windows 10 support continues until October 14th, 2025. So security is your concern, not whether or not the computer works. So after October 14th of 2025, if you're still on Windows 10 and Microsoft does not extend those updates, then each day you use that computer stubbornly online, you are voluntarily putting yourself and your identity and your money at risk, because you don't understand fully the depth of how dangerous the internet is and how much more dangerous the internet becomes each and every minute. The hackers attacking you will be using the latest technology most of the time. And if you want to enter into a war against an enemy that is going to use laser-guided missiles, and you think that your sharpened stick as a spear is all you need for a weapon because it still works, I just don't think you're going to be in that war very long. You are vastly outgunned. So the concern is whether or not the operating system is supported, not whether or not it's new or obsolete, being, the word you're using. Obsolete technically would occur when the computer no longer meets your needs. You could build a brand new computer that's instantly obsolete if it can't do what you need it to do or your needs suddenly change. That obsolete computer could be totally fine for somebody else, and that obsolescence is only because of your requirements. Universally, a computer would become obsolete if it's no longer able to secure you online. Your antivirus is not a replacement. You can't run an old operating system that doesn't have support and think your antivirus replaces that support. It does not. Absolutely does not. Now, it's your identity and it's your money. And if you want to look around the world blindly denying that these threats exist, like I'm up here spouting this for what? What's in it for me? I just feel bad for you, because it's sort of like saying you do not have to look both ways before you cross the street. There's never any cars. And you're going to cross that street over and over and over for years and years without a problem and see, I told you so. And it just takes one time One time, you're just a little too confident, you're denying your reality, you don't really respect the danger that exists around you. And that's going to be a very, very educational moment for you, unless you get very, very lucky, which is possible, but it doesn't make you right. But regardless, your decisions result in your consequences and your benefits. I'm just here to make you aware that when you're making these decisions, keep what I'm saying in mind if you want the best possible outcome statistically, making it much less likely that you'll ever be a victim of an identity theft or a ransomware. It only has to happen once. There's no going back. There are people that won't buy insurance on their cars. I've never been in an accident. Why would I need it? People could say they've been driving for 30 years and never been in a car accident. What do I need insurance for? That's a very twisted way to look at the world, and you're rolling dice and gambling. But at the end of the day, it has no impact on me. That's your decision and your consequence. And I want everybody watching to remember your decisions, not somebody else's. If you want to adopt somebody else's decisions, it's still your decision to do that. And it will always be your consequence, and it will always be your benefit. There's no pointing a finger and blaming anybody unless that person was paid to provide a service that caused you harm. Then you have legal recourse. But otherwise, just watching videos and reading articles and listening to nonsense from YouTube content creators and Reddit people, that is no way to guide your life unless you just want to go through life lost and just take people's word for stuff. I cannot. It's just not in me to just take somebody's word for something that important. That requires a bit more of my own research and independent thinking so I can make the decision right for me, and I would hope the rest of you follow the same. And what's right for you may not be right for anybody else. But denying it doesn't make the threat go away. Whether or not you choose to believe it has no impact on reality. So just remember that. You can believe anything you want, and you can choose to see whatever you choose to see, but it doesn't change what you're seeing. A threat will always be a threat, no matter if you dismiss it or you respect it. It doesn't change what it is. So choose wisely and accept your consequences and rewards for your choices. They're nobody's but yours. You own that. Let me take a look how we're doing here on the updates. Where's my screen? Full screen. Pending. Downloading. It still says downloading. Seem to be stuck here for some reason. Close that. Let's reopen it. I get a little impatient with this. Sometimes there's a little hiccup that it can occur. And usually if you wait long enough, it solves itself. But I like to give it a little nudge every now and again and keep it moving. So we'll see what that's going to do. Yeah, it's a very different, attitude from being an enthusiast. Once you get yourself in a corporate environment, you'll start realizing how foolish your thoughts have been. Once you see the millions of dollars that can be exhausted or lost through a bad decision in an IT department or a manager, it has fallen entire corporations through the lack of seriousness taken upon employees who have been charged with making these decisions. And you'll see that at bleepingcomputer.com/news. Just look at that daily, and you'll see multiple bad decisions every day that resulted in companies being costing the companies hundreds of millions of dollars to remedy due to some employee doing something foolish. And when it's you and it's your money, I don't care. It's your money. You want to throw it away, throw it away. But when you're responsible for causing losses, the likes of which you'll never be able to match, you'll never be able to correct that in your life, I don't know how those people sleep at night. I mean, that would be a very difficult reality for me to come to terms with, that I, through my indignation or arrogance affected the loss of jobs for hundreds of families employed at a company because of an errant and obtuse belief that I learned from watching something on the internet, that in reality put a company on a business or made a company down, brought a company to its knees. And all you have to do to verify what I'm telling you is true is go to bleepingcomputer.com/news. Visit it every day for a month and count how many companies it happens to. And this has been going on for years, and it will continue until people start taking this seriously. Now, every company it's happened to has only happened once. And if they'd have listened, it would have never happened once. So some people have to be brought to their knees to understand how valuable their feet are. And if you're one of those people, that's fine, but please don't try to promote that to others. I think that's very, very disrespectful. And it's irresponsible. Boy, this is still just kind of hovering around here. I'm going to just restart it. I don't know what's going on there. Very strange. But I'm too impatient to wait for that. Christoph Esch watches us from Germany, contributes €10. He says, hello from Germany. Windows 11 is new, and we all know that new things can have risks, so I would wait. Windows 10 will be great until 2025. I suspect I will be moving to Windows 11 long before Windows 10 support ends in 2025. If I had to guess, I would imagine I would be moving to Windows 11 probably about this time next year. And that gives Windows 11 time to mature and time for issues with software and hardware and even interface options that the public isn't liking to be improved, as well as new features to be added to give the product more reason to upgrade to it. But I'll keep you informed on that as when that time becomes available. And while the hobbyist enthusiasts can go ahead and install it, and they can suffer their own consequences, I don't want to advise a hobbyist or enthusiast attitude here because it's everywhere online. There are no more popular opinions online than from hobbyists and enthusiasts, which makes sense because they're hobbyists and enthusiasts. Most people who work a job for a living don't want to come home and talk about their job online. You don't see very many working professionals inputting their opinions on public forums on the internet. It's pretty rare. It's usually enthusiasts that have a delusion or a disconnect from responsibilities that can occur as a result of their hobbies in a professional environment, what can have dire consequences, not just financial ones. And it's concerning to me, and I can't stop them from doing it, but I can make you aware that it's pretty rare to find an actual professional on the internet offering advice. Sometimes they'll have some Ask Me Anything type Reddits or YouTube videos where they'll do that for 5 or 10 minutes or half an hour, and then you don't hear from them again. But for somebody to consistently make content talking about what they do for a living and doing that day after day and week after week, they do exist, but by comparison to the hobbyists and enthusiasts, they are very, very difficult to find. And so just be aware that information coming from hobbyists and enthusiasts has a very different value than information coming from professionals, and especially professionals that have decades of experience. And to dismiss them in exchange for a hobbyist or enthusiast may only be appropriate if you yourself are a hobbyist and enthusiast and you don't care about any consequences because they only affect you. When I'm sharing my information to the world, I am talking to children, I am talking to adults of all ages, I am talking to all genders and all religions and all economic statuses. I am talking to people with computer experience, I'm talking to people without computer experience, and I'm trying to find that middle ground that applies to most of the viewers. that fringe, there's a fringe in all those topics, or not topics, but there's a fringe of, of viewers. And the biggest fringe are the enthusiasts. And there's nothing wrong with enthusiasts. It's great. I enjoy what I do. I started my career because of my enthusiasm for technology. However, what I have learned is how serious and how expensive and what the consequences can be to a career if you screw up big enough. You'll be basically blacklisted. You won't be able to find a job. You will have to find a new career, right? There are certain things you don't do in a career. If you're a teacher and you do something that you're not supposed to be doing in front of your students, you may be banned from teaching. You could lose your teaching license. If you're a cook, you can lose your health license that permits you to cook. If what you do is so egregious and irresponsible, you can do that at home, but you cannot do it in a professional business. So I just want you to really understand, and I hope that you respect that the freedoms enthusiasts have are a result of irresponsibility and disrespect of others. It means you don't care. You just don't care. It's an apathy. You don't get that choice in a professional environment. If you don't care, you lose your job. You have to care. You will be held accountable. It doesn't require your permission. It is by default a condition of the job. So these words don't come lightly from me. And the reason I explain them is there's like just an epidemic of people who just want to deny consequences and responsibilities. And it's very disturbing. So again, I can't stop them, but my goal is to make you aware of it, that you consider the source of information before just jumping on any advice, especially if it's coming from the internet and it's not somebody you've known personally that you can hold accountable. That you can say, hey, remember when you told me I should do this? Well, this happened, right? These are people, you can't talk to them. You can't reach out and say, hey, that advice you gave me was bad. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to make it right? So it makes them very bold and irresponsible in their advice because they don't even think about it. They never think about anybody's consequences. So just remember that. All right, so we rebooted. It's probably still downloading updates in the background. Let's go back and try this again. Still stuck on that one. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. We're moving. We're moving. Ron Toomey says the Intel driver support tool keeps failing to update the new HD graphics driver after many tries and restarts. There's an option, Ron, because I've encountered that very same issue sometimes. It happens. And usually a restart and doing it again fixes it. But when it doesn't, there's a little option. It says learn more about this update. And if you click it, it should take you to the download page where you can grab the executable file. Directly from Intel is, the old school way of doing things. It'll take you right to the site. You just click on the .exe. It's about a 500-600 meg file. Let that download and then install it from that file. It'll be in your downloads folder. And then once it installs, that should be successful, reboot, and then go ahead and delete the file out of your downloads folder because you will never need it again. But that'll always fix it every time. Zen Carter gets it. He says, the lectures that I do are not necessarily targeted at one individual. Carrie is simply informing everyone since there are always newcomers who are watching for the first time and don't know this info. Thank you, Zen. I could not have said that better myself. That's part of the narcissism we deal with in our society. People think I'm talking directly to them. Unless I mention your name specifically, I am putting something out there for a video to be watched 10 years from now. I want that information to still be valid. It has nothing to do with that individual. It has to do with whatever caused somebody to alert me, something alerted me, and I want to draw attention to that and use that because I think it's important to remind people what the internet really is, and that you cannot trust the information on the internet unless it's coming from a source you know well. If you do not know the source well, I think it'd be very, very unwise to take the information as though it were accurate. It would require some research and verification and then make a decision. But if you have a trusted source, something you've got experience with, somebody who in the past has helped you or you're familiar with and has shown a consistent level of being accurate and useful to you, then clearly you would know that. But just a random comment from a random person making some claim it might as well be spam, and it should be treated as such. How are we doing on our update here? Still working on that one update. Okay, that's fine. I was hoping this would go faster. Okay, Cordia's Technology contributes $19.99. Carrie, thank you. No questions needed to be asked. Just keep on keeping it real. Well, right on. Thank you for supporting what I do here. I appreciate that very much. Carrie, have you ever had a brick and mortar repair shop? Yes. Yeah. And I've worked at several. Why do you ask? Mackled contributes $20. Thank you for supporting the channel. Maccolt, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but I appreciate it. Master Singleton with $2.75 Australian says, modified a softbox light stock fan with Noctua fans. Sean Gallagher with $5 says, my dad got the point-to-point wireless bridge for my mom and it fixed her internet problems. Thanks so much for the video. Yeah, when you have the right situation, those bridges are amazing. Yeah, when they're used, what a wireless bridge is intended to do is move a signal from one building to another building or over a distance up to a mile. It's not for fixing dead spots in a house unless you have a house in the backyard. Right, and you want to share the internet in the main house to the house in the back or the barn in the back. If it's just a big house, you'd want to use a mesh router. Mesh routers will cover about 6,000 square feet, most of them. And then when you want to extend outside of that property onto another property up to a mile away, then a wireless bridge is what you want. So, yeah, using the right technology to solve the right problem can be very effective. And it was a very interesting experience because I never had use for one before. And given the situation, I was never in the situation before, and it really saved my bacon. I wouldn't be able to broadcast to you today with the frequency that I've been without a wireless bridge. So I'm glad to hear that worked for you. R. Rodriguez, who had asked me if I had a brick and mortar store, said, I just noticed you do most of the work from the comfort of your home. Yeah, that Rick and Mortar, the Rick and Morty store, the brick and mortar store, that's long gone, long gone. Yeah, and thank goodness. Yeah, I'm just working out of the house or on site for my business clients. They don't bring stuff to me. Most business clients, you're going to go on site. You go to them, right? It's like being a plumber. There's not a lot of work you can bring home. So, not that you'd want to. But yeah, for the last few years now, I've been working out of the house. Hmm. Yeah, that really reduced a lot of stress. It's a lot less liability, a lot less overhead. Um, I'm I'm more in control of the security. That's always concerning when you got to lock a place up at night that you hope it's all going to be there in the morning. And and again, less overhead means I don't have as much pressure to earn that revenue just to make ends meet. So yeah, that was all shut down. Okay, Cordius Technology says, were you able to locate another 200R case? Sean Gallagher in the chat was the recipient of the case that Rick Hubbard had sent filled with potato chips from London. Rick Hubbard is there in London. And if you remember, if you go back a ways back, Rick sent me a 200R case from London, and when I opened the panel up, all these little bags of Walker's smoky bacon crisps came out. And Sean Gallagher was in a situation where he had a pretty bad case. And what I did was, Rick was in the chat, and I asked Rick, he sent me the case to use for a build. And I said, well, could we give it to Sean? And Rick said, yeah, absolutely. So we went ahead and moved all of Sean's parts into the 200R. Then I took Sean's old case and I threw it in the garage, knowing I'd use it, someday. That case became the original hot dog build that I then gave to Planet Cryos. Now, Sean has upgraded his case. He thought the 200R was pretty boring. He wanted lights and fans and stuff. So he took all the parts out. Well, first he asked me if I would do it for him. And I'm like, man, I'm really busy and I just don't really have time. And, I have to charge it for it. And he doesn't have a lot of money and I don't feel good taking his money, to be honest. So I said, if you reach out to me in a few weeks, we can work something out. So he ends up reaching out to me a few days later and said, hey, you know what? I just did it myself. Everything's great. And if you want this case, you can have it back. I know you want these 200Rs. And I said, I really appreciate it, but you're about 40 minutes away. I got to get in the car. I got to drive all the way over there, pick it up, drive all the way back. And I can't get any work done when I'm doing that. So I appreciate the offer. We just have to work out when it's possible for me to take the time to do that. So if I can figure out a time, like usually on Wednesdays, I run a lot of errands. For some reason, Wednesdays have become my errand day. Those are days I've got to go to the post office or get a haircut or get the oil changed in the car or go to Studio A, pick up the mail, play with the dogs. That's typically, but not always, a Wednesday. They shut down a lot of freeways here in Phoenix. They do a lot of construction. It never ends. And trying to drive anywhere on a Saturday or a Sunday where you have to divert around the freeway closures or end up getting stuck on the freeway for hours because of the traffic backups, you're better off staying on the surface streets. But it's always moving, it's always in flux, so it's important you check like Waze or a map app to make sure of freeway closures. So I really avoid trying to do any errands on the weekends because there's been 2 occasions so far where I got stuck on a freeway. I couldn't get off, could not get off the freeway for over an hour just to move that 1 mile to the next exit, over an hour. And I just thought, man, if I'd have taken any of the surface roads, I could be there and back by now. So during the week, I can take the freeways, no problem. They're generally not closed during the week. But Friday at around 10 o'clock at night until Monday, until about 5 o'clock in the morning, they will shut down major arteries of the freeway, completely closed. And it's always different. It may be eastbound over here, it may be northbound over there, it could be westbound over here, and then it could all alternate and switch next week. It's maddening. And that just drives me crazy when I have a lot to do. I don't have time to just sit in the car. So that's my biggest issue right now, is just finding the time and take up Sean on his offer. Hey, there's Marty Yoel with a $20 contribution. Hey, Marty, hope you're doing well. Thank you for your continued support, as always. This computer is waiting on a restart, isn't it? Let's go ahead and restart it. Wild One says, I set up a wireless bridge for a customer that was 2.5 miles, and it's still working great using Ubiquiti equipment. Nice. Yeah. The wireless bridge he's talking about was $99. I have a suspicion the Ubiquiti one that went 2.5 miles was how much money? I'm going to guess it was more than $99. Matt Power says, should I replace my router? It's like 6 years old. Is there a security risk? I don't know, maybe. You know, do you update your router? Do you have the latest update on your router? That might be something worth Googling. Hey, there's Riverside County accountability again. You know, one of the things that surprises me when I watch Riverside County accountability is they're just walking down the sidewalk with a camera and they just get harassed. And somehow people seem to act like you're the harasser because you have a camera. They're not talking to anybody. They're just standing there with their camera and somebody starts provoking them. And of course they're going to respond. And they see that response as harassment, the victims who start this whole thing. And it's shocking the ignorance is exposed there. And again, I appreciate Riverside County accountability. I appreciate what you guys do. And I wish more people knew, I really wish more people knew, if you don't want to be on a YouTube video, if you're out in the public and there's somebody with a camera and you think they're broadcasting you on the internet and you don't want to be broadcasted, bring up YouTube on your phone and play a music video really, really loudly. They won't be able to broadcast any audio or YouTube will shut them down for a copyright violation. You don't have to get into a fight. You don't have to argue. All you got to do is play your music loud. You know, in the 80s, we used to have boom boxes and you play that sucker really loud, right? When I was working at a shop, when Subaru Mike had his shop, we were trying to film an engine repair, but there was another shop a few doors down that was working on cars with the radio blaring. And I went over there and I said, hey man, we're trying to film for YouTube and I can't have your music playing. It's going to create a copyright violation for me. Could you guys, I mean, I don't want to be the old guy, but could you turn it down? And he's like, well, who are you? And I said, well, I'm over here with Subaru Mike. And they go, oh, Mike? I understand these guys I'm talking to are these, you know, really big, you know, younger, almost look like they're part of a gang. That's the impression, right? My stereotype was like, you know, one of these things is not like the other. And I did not belong there. They don't know who I am. Who's this guy walking up to us? So I said, it's for Subaru Mike. And they said, oh, it's for Mike? Oh, we'll do anything for Mike. Tell Mike we love him. I was like, whew. I thought for a minute there was going to be a fight. So anyway, it's a very peaceful way of protesting something you don't like without having to get into an argument or make yourself look a fool on the internet. It's a very simple process. And I don't know how more people don't know that. But in the meantime, these people that don't know it and they revert back to being violent or threatening, get the public shaming they deserve, in my opinion. So all good for Riverside County Accountability, man. Check them out. Watch their videos. It's shocking to watch human behavior over people just standing with a camera. You know, he could have a camera in like Google Glass. Remember that? They'd never know. He could be doing the same thing. They'd never know. But because they can see the camera, they somehow feel threatened. It's just very strange. Very strange. All right, so we're here once again at the restart of this screen of Windows, and we'll just hit continue here, and don't update here, and apply there. And we're gonna hit cancel here. And skip for now over there, and we're done with that. We'll go back to Windows Update. We'll make sure we have all our updates. We'll hit install now on those. That shouldn't take anywhere near as long as that first round did. $1.99 comes in from Rakshit Patel. Hey, haven't seen you in a while, Rakshit. Hope you're doing well. He says, hey, Carrie, hope all is well with you. Yeah, back at you. Thank you. Bob Connor said, Carrie, you're going to knock the power supply off the table. Every time you touch it, it moves over to the edge. Is it? That's okay. There's a power cable right here, so we should be all right. How many times have you seen me knock a power supply off the table? Just curious. Yeah, I can't tell if Riverside County Accountability is still in the chat, but I love what you're doing. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I love it. I appreciate it. If you guys want to know what videos I watch, the Riverside County Accountability is on my subscribe list with notifications turned on. That's how I start my day. I get all pissed off watching it. Not at them. I get pissed off watching Americans battle each other over something that is part of our Constitution. It is so offensive to me that Americans behave that way towards each other. We don't need any enemies. We already have each other. It's sad, sad, sad. But I think I have some unhealthy addiction because I watch it and I get upset every time, and I just keep going back for more. So what's wrong with me? But yeah, I enjoy the psychology of behavior, especially when it's bizarre and unjustifiable. Like it's common sense, and it's just amazing how out of control it's become. Rochester, New York 87 says, I love watching the First Amendment auditors. Yeah, most of them. I think most of them are good, but it's usually how people choose to respond to it. And blaming the auditor for your choice of response, I think, is sad. You know, nobody makes you do anything. You voluntarily choose how you want to respond, and you do it with your own consent. And why you would make yourself look a fool in front of a camera, it just boggles my mind that people they're so delusional, they don't seem to understand the consequences of their actions. All right, but be that as it may, where were we? Where are we? Check for update. Oh, there's optional updates. Let's see what optional updates are there. Driver updates. That one should be a quick one. Okay, if we check for updates, we should be caught up, and now I can run the whole Prime 95 thing, and we can compare this board with the previous one. You see how long this setup takes. Now that one might also have updated video drivers as well, but I don't think that should impact our results. Ideally, you'd want everything exactly the same for accuracy, but look, we're just going to wing it here to get us in a ballpark, and hopefully we'll have results that are accurate nonetheless. but there's no serious consequences if I'm wrong or if there is some difference there that would be major. Uh, I just don't believe there will be from knowing what I know about what drivers might be missing, which again would be maybe the NVMe driver from Intel. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. And then the video driver, which is usually like these latest Intel video drivers are for mostly compatibility to Windows 11. So I'm going to make an assumption that everything is good, close enough to run an accurate test or to get accurate test results. So we'll go back to my utilities flash drive. Once again, repeat what I did right at the very beginning of this video, which is to bring up the hardware monitor software in Prime 95. Knowing the only difference between this system and the system I just tested is the mounting technique of the cooler. It's the same cooler sold by the same company with the same model number and the same price, and yet it's different. Fun, right? So let's see if this cooler runs any better, any worse, or exactly the same. So once again, if I look at the hardware monitor, we can see all the cores there. It's all the same. All the speeds are all the same. All the voltages, all the same. And we're idling right now, so everything's a bit low. Right now, we're at idling just under 30 degrees Celsius. This will be our lowest recorded temperatures here, and this will be our highest recorded temperatures on the right. And we want to make sure this stays at or below 85°C. We reached, what did I say it was, 66 was our max after 22 minutes on this row, and we're going to keep an eye on that. And we're going to start the test right as soon as I click OK, using all the default settings. We're not changing anything here in Prime 95 version 26.6. We click OK, and then we bring this window up so we can monitor it and we can verify that all CPUs, there's 16 cores on a 9900K, they're all at 100%, maxing out temporarily, peaking at 4400 megahertz, which is the turbo speed, which is meant to be momentary. It's not meant to run at that speed for a long period of time. And once again, I'll start my stopwatch, and we'll let that run for about 22 minutes. So we're back to your questions in the meantime while we let the test run. PC Fishing said, I've watched Riverside, County Accountability, SGV, News First, and Furry Potato. Yeah, all three of these folks are frequently doing this action together. I'm very concerned they're going to get shot. I'm very concerned in some of the neighborhoods they go into and some of the behaviors. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I'm very concerned for their safety. Sometimes I just think, man, I hope he's wearing a bulletproof vest. And I hope it never happens, but boy, some of the people are just very mentally unstable. So, you know, what they're doing is very, very dangerous. Ackold says, I commented on your police rant the other day, so I sent you $20 just a few ago. You ignored. No, I took a whole few minutes and mentioned how I wasn't sure how to pronounce your name. I announced your contribution. So you can rewind the video. And I appreciate your contribution, just like I said. I don't know why you didn't hear it, but why did you assume I ignored you? It's on video. Just rewind it. I appreciate your contribution. I said as much. See, these are the kind of situations that baffle me. Somebody denies what happened, and in this case, it's all recorded. All you have to do is rewind the video. You missed it. I don't know why you missed it. Maybe you got up and walked away. Maybe your phone rang. I don't know. But I definitely acknowledged you and thanked you, as I do everybody who contributes. It means a lot to me. So to be accused of not doing that kind of feels like you're demonizing me when I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't do what you're claiming. It's absolutely false. I really wish people would take a moment to verify things before they start issuing punitive behaviors. It's very disappointing. I'm not a demon. You don't need to do that. Master Singleton says, Carrie, what is your favorite snack? Chips, any kind of chips. Yeah, Pringles, Doritos, Fritos, Lay's potato chips, Walker's crisp, smoky bacon crisps. Oh my gosh, baked Lay's, thick cut Lay's, uh, Andy Capp's hot fries, Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos. Yeah, all that stuff that's supposed to kill you. Mortmont says Oots. We don't really have Oots out here. UTZ. I think there's some stores that have one or two products, but I'm not a fan. Joseph Zins with a $5 contribution says, Hey, Carrie, I hope you're doing well. I was curious what kind of microphone filters you're using with your streaming software, if you don't mind sharing. I think if you just look at configuring your microphone in OBS as a YouTube search, there are a number of content creators that have shared recommendations for good audio. And I watched a number of those videos. Pay attention to how old the video is, because OBS is frequently updated and the options change. So watch one that is newer, but also watch one that is thorough. You know, that they're not just spouting stuff off, but they're actually walking you through it. And then find what works for you, because the environment you're in and the microphone you're using and the tone of your voice will differentiate your settings. My settings probably won't work for you with your voice and your microphones in your environment. So it's something you have to adjust based on those variables. It's not a one-size-fits-all type setting. Thank you for contributing, though, and I appreciate your asking the question. R. Rodriguez says, what is your smartphone of choice? I'm a Samsung Galaxy guy all the way. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Where are we at on our test? We're about 7.5 minutes in. And how are we doing? So far, our maximum temp is 59 Celsius. We're right on par with where we were. We've got 13 more minutes to go, 12, 13 minutes. Keep an eye on it. So far, so good. Still whisper quiet, still the same. Everything's fairly close enough to being identical so far. Master Singleton said, I would recommend you try Red Rock Deli Chips, a boutique Australian brand of chips with a lot of great flavors. Gosh, is it Red Rock I've had before? Are those the kettle cooked chips? I'm trying to remember. Kettle cooked chips are okay. They're really hard. Sometimes I'm in the mood for a crunchy chip, like those Hawaiian barbecue chips. Who makes those Hawaiian barbecue chips? I got to look at the package. I have some over here. They're a kettle chip like what I think you're describing. Luau barbecue. They're just Hawaiian brand Luau barbecue. So these are something I enjoy from time to time, but they get I don't know. I don't crave them a lot. Sometimes I crave them. I go through a bag and I'm good for a few months before I crave them again. They're very, very loud, very, very crunchy, kind of hard on your teeth. They got a little spice to them. And yeah, every once in a while I get in the mood for that. But overall, I'm not a big fan of kettle cooked chips. They're just a little too much effort to eat them. But I think the Red Rock ones I've had, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, like Dave Price mentions Cape Cod. I've had the Cape Cod chips, also not my favorite. But again, if it's a kettle chip, it's going to fall into that category in general. There's very few exceptions. I found a brand out of Michigan. They're only in Michigan as far as I know, called Great Lakes. Where's the bag? Right here. This is, I talked about this. These are kettle cooked chips that are a barbecue flavor with black cherry, Michigan cherries. And I thought, what an unusual flavor. I can't even imagine what that would taste like. So I bought the bag and I ate the bag. And I'm kind of chewing slowly, thinking about it. Do I like this? It's very weird. So I had to go buy another bag because I couldn't determine if I liked them. And I'm still not sure, but I've got 3 bags I brought back with me just so I could, evaluate and make up my mind. I think that means I like them. I can't really say that I like them. They're just weird and different. And I think once that weirdness or that differenceness wears off and it becomes familiar to me, once I've eaten enough of them, I don't think I'll want them anymore. But they're so different from any other flavor I've ever had. I don't really like it and I don't dislike it. It's falling in this category of I'm not sure. And I think if they weren't kettle chips, I might like them more. But again, the effort it takes to chew them is like, you really got to break them apart. You're not going to eat those quietly. That's what I'm saying. You will know wherever I am in the house if I've got that bag of chips. You just have to listen. There he is. Take the one chip challenge. I've been trying to find it. I can't find it anywhere. I was at a store on the road trip back from Michigan, and they had the display with the one chip challenge, but it was cleaned out. Like everybody had bought it up. I'd totally do that. And then probably never do it again. I wouldn't mind the experience. Where are we at on our, well, 12 minutes in so far. Still got about 10 minutes to go. So any other tech questions you have, fire them at me. Bob Connor said another Michigan brand you could try is Better Made, made in Detroit, if I'm not mistaken. They are made in Detroit. I grew up eating Better Made. And in fact, I brought some Better Made home with me. They have an unusual style of chip that they call Rainbow. And, you know, it's expensive to ship them to Phoenix, but the Rainbow are the dark colored chips. Now, these are not kettle chips. These are normal thin cut potato chips, and they are what we call old fashioned or dark style. Very, very difficult to find anything like this. So I brought a few bags home with me, and Better Made is absolutely going to be part of my diet in any trip to Michigan. And since we're talking about junk food, we'll just go to a different type of junk food altogether. I was at Costco, and Costco has this super giant bag of basically just Cheetos is what they are. But it says extra cheddar cheesy smiles from a company called something Annie's. These things are freaking addictive. They're fresh and they're soft and they're flavorful. And, well, needless to say, the next time I go back to Costco, I need to buy a few more bags. And I think they take a while to expire, so you don't have to eat a whole bag real soon. But man, those are good. Holy smokes. These put Cheetos to shame. Yeah, these are really, really good. Really, really good. And it's a giant bag. American size. Do I like to dip my chips in any kind of dip? No. I don't like my food touching. No. If I'm having a nacho, then I like to dip it in some spicy cheddar cheese. But I don't want to like use it like a spoon. I just want to add a little flavor to the chip. So a little ramekin of cheese, I can use that for an entire bag of chips. I don't like pouring the cheese on the chips because then the chips get soggy. The chips underneath don't get any cheese at all. And then the cheese gets cold and it's just gross. So if I dip it, I put as much on as I want. And if I overdo it a little, I can grab an extra chip to offset it. Master Singleton says Stacy's Pita Chips is another great brand. Yeah, I've had Stacy's Pita Chips. I find them, I just don't care for them. I don't like the texture, and I think they're very bland. So for me personally, not a fan of any pita chips at all, regardless of who makes them. Bob Connor says, I love cheddar. Can I mail order those? Bob, there's probably a Costco somewhere near you, and most Costcos all carry the same stuff. DSL DG2 said, I just had a BIOS update from Dell. Will this have reset my settings to default? There aren't usually many settings for you to change in a BIOS that's coming from Dell or HP or any of those big manufacturers. So I don't know. You'd have to go in there and look. Your choices will be very limited compared to a standard board like what we're using here. There aren't many settings you can change in their BIOSes. Do Lyle and Jimmy have a favorite flavor of chip? That's from BH Ringer. I don't know how to tell. If it's food, they like it. They don't seem to have a preference. Bob Connors says there is no big stores near where he lives. Yeah, you could probably go online to Costco.com if you have a Costco membership, or the grocery store probably has the smaller normal size bags. Annie's is not a product strictly of Costco. They're found in markets across the country. John Paul Pagan says he likes Sun Chips, Harvest Cheddar, and French Onion. I like the Harvest Cheddar, but they taste a little like shingles. the texture, they're very brittle and they break apart, and they don't seem to be bound very well together. It seems like they're barely being held together, and they look like shingles off a roof. But every once in a while, maybe 2-3 times a year, I get a hankering, I get a craving, and I'll buy a bag, and then I'm done with it for a while. But they're different, and I like that, sometimes I just need something different. When you have a restricted diet like me, the best I can do is take something I like and find another way to deliver that. And that's what those harvest chips do for me. I'm not eating the chirps. Chirps are chips made out of crickets. I'm not eating that. They also have chips made out of rice. I'm not eating that. Yeah, I'll let other people eat that stuff. They have chips made out of cauliflower or vegetables. You can have those unless the vegetable is a potato. Let me take a quick look, or corn or potato, that's fine. Let me take a quick look where we're at. It looks like we're at 18 minutes. And so far, what are we doing? 66 is our maximum temp. This is looking very, very consistent. We're only running about 3.9 right now, which is normal. We've boosted to 4.4, which is normal, and we've rested at 800, which is all exactly what it's supposed to do. And 66 is our max. Now remember, something to keep in mind is 2 CPUs may not run the same temps. And that's normal because of the process and how the CPUs are made and how the dies are created. There's a variance that makes some more overclockable, some run a little cooler, some run a little warmer, and you could have 10 identical chips. They're all the same chip, but they could all run under some could be more overclockable than others, some may run cooler than others, but they're otherwise identical. And that's why that's something called a silicon lottery. And if you look that up, it's a term overclockers use about the odds of getting one of those chips that's very, very overclockable, meaning it's going to run cool out of the gate, right out of the box. And that enables you to be able to crank it up a little higher. But it's a lottery in the sense that there's no way to know until you buy it what it can do. And some are just more overclockable. Some run a little cooler. In an ideal world, everything would be exactly the same every time. If we run 1 degree or 2 degrees warmer or cooler, that would be a margin of error that would be acceptable. If it runs exactly the same, that's kind of incredible. And we're on that path right now. It's running exactly the same, so far as I can tell. It would be interesting to dissect this video and put these 2 tests side by side, sync them up in time and see if the temperatures are climbing at exactly the same time and the same rate across all 8 cores. I don't think that's possible because of the differences in manufacturing that one die leads to another. However, it would be interesting to see, I think, because we're pretty on par, I think. Maple Bob says, Carrie, I'm planning to build another system soon. What's the best Intel to go now? LGA 1200 or wait for a new socket to come? Asking what's best is an unanswerable question because how you define best and how I define best and how other people define best, every CPU is the best CPU for somebody. And since I don't know you and I don't know your budget and I don't know what you need the system for, and since the 12th generation isn't out and I don't have my hands on it yet, I can't recommend anything that's brand new like that, just out of the gate. So for right now, if you want something that I would recommend, like this system here, this is 9th gen. I have a version of this for 10th gen, and I have a version of this for 11th gen. I haven't done a 12th gen build, but you're right around the same financial ballpark. The 9th gen stuff will be a little bit cheaper. The 10th gen stuff is probably right at the performance value line. The 11th gen stuff is a little bit more money because it's new. The 12th gen stuff will be even more money. You're going to have to spend more on your RAM for DDR5. You'll spend more on your board and you'll spend more on your chip because it's new. New means you're going to pay more. That's what that means. So I don't recommend the latest except for people that are experimenters or hobbyists. I don't wouldn't put an untested platform in a client's location without accepting that I will be responsible for correcting any problems that occur, and it'll come out of my pocket. Customer won't have to pay for that. So there's no incentive for me to recommend something that's that new. It doesn't make any sense. But when the chips come out, 12th gen, and the motherboards and the RAM, I will be watching videos like the rest of you to see what the reviewers like Hardware Unboxed, Gamers Nexus. I go to my reliable channels for that kind of information. And then I get an idea of what to expect. I don't memorize every word, and I don't take every word as gospel. I don't always agree with the testing methodology, and I don't always agree with what they think is important. A lot of what they think is important, I wouldn't even bother mentioning. I don't even think it's worth discussing. But I filter all that out, and I go for the parts that are important to me. And then I'll make a purchase based on that information, and then we'll do a build here. It'll probably be about a month or 6 to 8 weeks, I would imagine, depending on costs and inventory. It may even be the first of the year because of the manufacturing issues we're dealing with during this pandemic. So without experience, hands-on, and because it's new, I couldn't recommend anything 12. But what's best, ultimately that's up to the individual on how you define that. We are at 23 minutes. That's it. Ladies and gentlemen, it is identical. 23 minutes, 66 is our max temp. So the good news, can I go full screen? And you guys might have a hard time seeing it. Let me go full screen on it. The good news is the mounting mechanism that has changed, well, more labor intensive, more prone to installation error, doesn't seem to have any impact, positive or negative, on the efficacy of the cooler. I'm surprised. I really didn't expect it. It is Noctua after all, but if Noctua could shock me and disappoint me with such a lousy installation method, I was prepared for them to shock me with different results. So good for Noctua that they didn't improve the cooling, but they also didn't harm it. But they certainly made it possible for you to install it incorrectly and obviously not get this kind of performance. So once again, I'm going to go ahead and stop the test. We'll go over here. Watch. This line is our current temperatures right down this row. Watch when I stop Prime 95. As soon as I click this OK button, bring your eyes over here and watch how quickly this drops. Here we go. So cooling is critical, as you can see, how quickly things can ramp up and get super hot. And, these days CPUs have protection built in so that they won't overheat to damage themselves, but they can overheat to shut your system down until they cool off. And most people would never run a CPU at 100% for 23 minutes, 24 minutes, whatever that was. And it's a torture test if there ever was one. So there you go. That answers that. So the good news, if I turn that feed off, the good news is if you want to buy one of these newer coolers, and you're willing to endure that installation method and know that any sort of upgrade or removal of the heatsink may result in damaging those clips, at least you can expect the same cooling performance. So that's the good news. Unfortunately, it's not enough for me because I want what I had. And what I had was an excellent design in both installation and in cooling and sound and noise. So they've kept the cooling and noise levels the same, but they have overly complicated, in my opinion, the installation method in order to add compatibility for the new 12th gen CPUs. I find it unacceptable. I don't like it. And I'll be looking forward to trying the new Scythe Mugen 5. Those should be arriving tomorrow, I think. I might not get them till next week, though. However, if the Mugen, for any reason, lets me down, I'll take another look at Be Quiet. And if they let me down, and my choice is picking the worst, or picking the best of the, what's the phrase I'm looking for? If every cooler has a sacrifice to be made, then I'll determine with that knowledge which is the one I'll use from that point forward, not being totally happy with any of the choices. But I'm hopeful that the Mugen 5 will resolve my concerns. But it is an interesting experiment to know that the cooler, as far as, Noctua did a good job as far as maintaining consistency with the noise level and with the cooling effectiveness of the cooler, while completely ruining the installation process and making it, 3 or 4 different ways you can screw it up and not even realize you've screwed it up. You'll just be diagnosing an overheating issue and wondering why. And that was impossible to do before, but now they've made it possible, and it saddens me. So anyway, the 3 extra coolers I ordered from Noctua are going back to Amazon, and Mugen will replace those. The next thing I wanted to do was to test these CPUs here that I ordered. These are 10th gen CPUs. These are Core i5 10600Ks that I ordered. They're right here. There's one of them. There's another one. They were returned product to Amazon, and they were $200 each instead of $230. So by buying 3 of them, 200, 200, 200, this would have been 30, 60, 90. That's almost $100 in savings plus sales tax. That is $100 easily in savings. I don't need the package. This is pretty much how they arrived in like a bubble envelope with this. I don't have the box or documentation or the little Go Faster sticker. And if that saves me $30, me personally, again, I'm dealing in a very large scale. $30 adds up real quickly in such a low profit margin business. So I know that this chip that I've got on there now, which is the 10600K, that works. And I thought for this test, I'll just leave everything the same. We'll pop one of these chips in the socket, fire it up, make sure Windows sees it okay. So for this, I'm going to use these little tiny suction cups that I have that help me remove and install Intel CPUs. And these are in my Amazon store. They're very inexpensive. You get a little box like this of these, and we'll go back to this camera over here so you can see what I'm doing. Let's go right there. There we go. In fact, let me go ahead and make this full screen for you. If I can pick the right input. There it is. And, oh, I need to get my wireless dongle out of that other motherboard. Probably going to need that keyboard and mouse here coming up. So again, this was already pre-set up. I think we did this on camera a while back, probably not that long ago. And so my little hack is to take a little suction cup, stick it right on there, and I can lift up the retention lever and pull the CPU out of the socket and then slide the suction cup off of it. And I'll set it over here to the right. These are all Intel i5 10th generation 10600K processors. They're all identical. And I want to make sure I test these while I'm in my return period, because Amazon is super easy to send items back for any reason. And I want to do that during it's about a month, I think you have to return them. And so if you wait, and you're like, oh, I've had this for 8 weeks and I finally got around to it, it may or may not be very helpful. So that's another 10600K. And I'm going to go ahead and pop this on there real quick. I really need to put this on a cardboard box because I'm going to scratch up my table. This is the box it came in. I don't know why I didn't just grab that. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to move some things around here. Bring this up here like this. And I'm just going to slap a basic OEM cooler on there with no thermal compound. Again, this is just coming right back off so we can keep swapping CPUs. And we'll make sure these all work like they're supposed to. I don't need to go through a big performance test. I just need to make sure that the BIOS recognizes it and Windows recognizes it. Because people who forfeit these things, counterfeit. People who counterfeit these things, they don't work that well or not that good. So if it'll go through all those steps, we're gonna be just fine. All right, and then I just need one more power cable here. And we'll put that right there. And then I need my power switch, of course. And I'm gonna step it around it one more time so I can see the pins. Plug that in. And we've got to put video, HDMI right there. And that keyboard and mouse dongle, I'm going to need that as well. We already have an M.2, we already have a RAM, so we should be good to go. And I think Windows 10 was already installed on this, so it should be a pretty quick test here. Power supply back on. Oh, I always had it on. I should have had it off. And I'll turn it on. You'll see this kind of gets a little twitchy. It'll start to run. And what I'll do is turn the HDMI input on. And let me minimize it a little bit here. Bear with me here a second. I got to select the right input. We'll move that over here. And you'll see the fan is not yet turning. And that's normal. There it goes. Yep, and that is loading into Windows 10. And when we're in Windows 10, and again, we can go full screen on this. We'll go over here and hit Control. Oops, wrong one. Go over here and hit Control F. And now I can right click over on my PC, go to properties, or if you don't have that, you can just go down here, right click on your start button, go to system. Either way, it takes you to the same place. We want to verify it's a 10600K, it's the right frequency, everything looks good. Once again, if we wanted to verify UEFI mode, just type msinfo32. And press enter. And we look under BIOS mode and it says UEFI. So we are in UEFI mode. And we can close that and shut it down and rinse and repeat to the next CPU. So that one is good. It's tested. Obviously, when it gets put into a system, it'll go through the whole Prime 95 torture test. But at that point, you know, I'm very confident we're not going to see any problems because the counterfeiters generally, the CPUs won't identify or they won't sit in the socket correctly when they counterfeit them. So that looks as genuine as you get. At this time, I'm going to turn the power supply off. There we go. Safety, safety. We'll go ahead and remove our temporary cooler. And once again, suction cup. Push that on the plastic. Don't touch anything metal on your board. Lift that straight out. Slide off the suction cup. We'll set this aside with the other one. Those are two good ones. This other one in a package is the one I think I received today. Take that out. I'll go ahead and put the suction cup on it. And that's going to go in this way. Slide that off of there. And put the heatsink back on. And we'll fire this one up. Samuel Nasson contributes $1 Canadian. Thank you, Samuel. There we go. You'll see the fan still isn't spinning yet. There it goes. With that loaded, one more time. I will go to the right click on the start button. I got to use the other mouse carry. Go over to the start button, right click, and then over to system. You definitely want to see it's still a 10600K. It's still being recognized at the right frequency. That looks good. That's as good of a test as I need out of the gate. Like if it wouldn't get this far, I'd issue an Amazon refund immediately. The fact it's getting this far, there's a pretty good chance, a very, very, very good chance, this is exactly what it appears to be, a returned processor in perfect shape. So we'll do the torture test when it's installed in its final motherboard home, so we can verify that there's no other issues deeper into the chip, but that would be very, very unusual to be in that scenario. So now it's powered off. I'll go ahead and turn the power supply off, and we go back around again with one more chip to test. Again, they're all 10600Ks. They were $200 a piece. They had 15 available, and I was tempted to get about 6 of them, but I didn't want to drop $1,200 on CPUs. And then when I went back just to order a couple more, they only had 2 left. So somebody's paying attention. Okay, this is my last one to check here. There it is. Please notice how I don't touch any of the metal on the motherboard or the circuit board. I only touch plastic or heat sinks or IO shield. You can hold the top of the RAM. If you've got heat shields on the RAM, that's fine. Here's another heat shield or heat spreader, as they're called. Any of that is safe to touch or hold. Keep your fingers off of anything metal down here on the board. It's just not a good habit to get into. You don't necessarily break it just because you've touched it, but that's how a breakage can happen. So if you don't do it, you're avoiding that type of a scenario from happening. You're removing that from the equation, that possibility, rather than roll the dice and hope for the best. I'd rather not roll the dice. Okay, flip the switch back on, turn this back on one more time. Here we go. Lights up. I get a little twitch. Oops. There we go. And in just a minute, we should get a BIOS post screen and the fan should start spinning. Stefan A contributes 10 Canadian dollars and says, "Greetings, Mr. Holzman. How's the weather in your area? Here near Montreal, Quebec in Canada, it's 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, we're twice that. A little more than twice that. Must be nice." All right, so thank you for the contribution. Let's go back to this again. We'll go full screen. And let's take a look and make sure that we see a 10600K. Let's see. Right click system. 10600K, everything looks correct. We're good to go. That's wonderful. And I think I still have one more of these CPUs coming. So we'll see how those appear in future videos that I'll be showing off how we're going to utilize these chips. I've got 4 more of these motherboards brand new in a box. I'm sure they're going to be long overdue for BIOS updates. So we'll get ready for that. And then, of course, my suction cup will go right back with the rest of them. You see how useful that suction cup tool is on Intel CPUs. I was going to invent a tool, and then I realized there's already a tool, and kind of came up with this idea on my own. So if you see anybody else using these, like the leaf blower, I started it. They say imitation is the most flattering compliment you can get, so I'm not complaining. I like helping people, and I like when people acknowledge what I do makes sense and they adopt it themselves. There's no greater vindication. In the meantime, whether they do or they don't doesn't really have any impact on me. I do it for me. I don't do it for other people. But I thought if I find it helpful, maybe many of you will too, and so that's why I show it. Okay, so all my testing is done, and I still have 2 motherboards to put into 200Rs. I've got one 200R new in a case. I've got another 200R that I'm going to gut, and I'll use those parts in a different case because it doesn't have to be a 200R. I've got to talk to Sean about getting the 200R from him that he has and take him up on his offer. That's going to help out the viewer who sent in the computer that's damaged. We're going to put them right back into a 200R if we can. They really wanted a smaller case, but we can't do that without putting in a smaller motherboard. And they don't want to change the board. So then they were asking if it was different colors. Well, again, there are cases in different colors, but most of them will not have the ability to have the DVD drive built in, and they really want the DVD drive. So we discussed this. We came around full circle right back to the 200R again. And so, yeah, if I'm able to pick that up from Sean, I'm sure that's going to make the customer very happy. And it's just kind of amusing to me when you look at the history of this channel and you watch how the parts get rotated around. Sometimes something we did 2 or 3 years ago comes back and gets repurposed out again to somebody else. And if you've been a fan of this channel and you've been watching that, I'm just here to remind you that those videos are there. You can go back and rewatch when we first received that case from Rick Hubbard that was filled with the smoky bacon Walker's crisps. That when I gave that system, or that case rather, over to Sean during a repair, I kept Sean's case, which I thought was a piece of junk, but there was nothing wrong with it. It was just really poorly made. And then I thought, well, I'll use it in a giveaway at some point. Ended up building something in it. It cleaned up really nice, by the way. It's still a cheap piece of junk, but I refer to it as a hot dog because it looks good, but you don't want to see how it's made. That went over to Planet Cryos, who's using it to this day. And then getting the 200R then back again, and then giving that to a different viewer. I just love having this all documented. Not only does it prove my experience, but it also shows long-term how a business is sustainable and how we can reutilize things and save our customers money if it's meeting that customer's expectation, and how we can just play a little bit of musical chairs if you're creative enough to be able to find other ways to generate revenue where you're not constantly having to buy new inventory. You can, one person's trash is another person's treasure, with certain limitations regarding my own personal liability. So that's why when I don't want the liability, I give it away. I just go, here, you can have this, but don't ask me for any help. It's yours. We're done. You're on your own, right? That's the extent of my help, because there's 1,000 other people waiting for my help. So I give each person that opportunity one at a time. I hope in time I'll be able to help everybody. And and not help one person over and over and over again while others go completely ignored and alienated. Because that's how I grew up. That's how I felt. I don't want anybody else to feel that way. So you're all appreciated, and I want to make sure that the most generous of my viewers are taken care of first, and there's not that many of them, okay? So I appreciate them especially because they make it possible for me to even do the giveaways to begin with, and they deserve it. That's a return on their investment, and none of them were expecting it, and that makes it even more special. So I'm going to probably wrap this up. I need to get a bite to eat. It's 6:30 in the evening here, and I have not eaten yet. And I want to thank all of you for joining me today and for hanging out, helping me get caught up. I'll probably do some work tonight with regards to getting the motherboards into the cases and out of the cases as need be, and get that all sorted. I still have to take the pool vacuum apart, get that done. But I just really need to eat something first, I think. Stefan A with a $5 contribution again says, I vote that every subscriber gives $2 to Kerry for his house in Michigan. Hey, that would pay for the house. Don't count on it. Well, I appreciate the thought. Fewer than 1/2% of subscribers contribute, and that's just a general number. Any higher number than that would be highly unusual. If there was even 10%, it would be very unusual. But I do have a handful of viewers and subscribers who contribute large amounts that more than cover, 100 or 200 subscribers worth of contributions. Maybe even 500 subscribers worth of contributions and some generous support. And it's those folks that are behind the scenes and you really don't know who they are. And they continue to promote and basically produce financially this content. And without them, I'd have much fewer videos. So I really, really appreciate them. I never really thought about that even being a possibility. Like, hey, maybe people will, contribute and not be able to do it that way. I tried Patreon and it was just more work, a lot more work, and it wasn't worth it for me, for a couple extra bucks to have to go through all that extra effort. And then when the whole going live and the super chat thing became available, it just sort of worked itself out, and it's not just one person. There's a handful of people, and they don't do it at the same time, so it's not like there's like a windfall of money. But because they do that, and many of them have done it over and over and over and over and over for years, it has really guided me to working YouTube full-time, and that my regular day job has become part-time at this point. And I would like to remove all the stress. A lot of stress dealing with customers. Like I said, customer calls you, their office is down, their employees are on the clock, but not getting any work done. The customers can't be helped. And I have to stop everything I'm doing and adopt their problem. That's what they pay me for. That's my job. If I could remove that stress, then I'm just dealing with the stress of, interacting with certain people sometimes, or the stress of being live and trying not to make myself look too stupid. It'd be less. I can't get rid of it entirely is what I'm trying to tell you. But I'm delighted that so many people have found my channel and appreciate the value of my content, whether or not they contribute to it. The fact that they watch it is cool. Though I don't make it, again, I don't make my content for other people. I make it for me. So I never really expected a lot of people to get on board with my way of looking at the world. The fact that so many people have, I kind of wonder how many more people could there be out there that haven't discovered me yet? How big could this get? It doesn't make any sense to me that so many people are interested. However, I'm not complaining about it. I just wasn't expecting it. And it hasn't happened overnight. I've been doing this for 13 years here on YouTube. But through the contributions, you'll see it's ramping up and more videos are getting posted more often. And that's why it's happening. So for people looking to start a YouTube channel, don't expect to be an overnight success. Make videos you want to make. And then title them and tag them so when people search for the subject matter, they'll find you in a Google search. And then give it time to grow. You know, you're planting a seed. Keep an eye on it. If you can make content more often, if you can afford to do it and you have the ideas, that'll obviously help. But this channel was founded on a desire for there to be a comprehensive build guide. The very first video on this channel, the first two videos on this channel were computer builds. One was AMD and one was Intel. I did nothing else for a year. And those slowly started getting more and more and more and more views. And some people don't understand that this is the foundation of this channel is computer building. This is what it was founded on. And I don't want to move away from that for too long, but it does get repetitive. You know, how many times can you see a computer being built? It ends up being the same thing over and over and over. But there is a demand for that. If I can get more repairs in here, I enjoy doing repairs more than I enjoy building. And I think you guys enjoy watching the repairs based on the view numbers I get. So if you have a computer you need repaired and you'd like to ship it to me only within the United States, reach out to me. Let's find out what you've got, whether or not I can help you. And if so, we can work out those arrangements. It makes for very good content. And beyond that, I always default to computer building. Always remember this is a computer building channel. It's what it started as, and it will always be a part of this channel. Even if I do it less, it's nothing that will ever go away. So, you know, set your expectations accordingly. But that's been my bread and butter here on YouTube. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thanks for all of your contributions. Of course, from others, Michael Dane just contributed $5 from my hospital bed. I say hello, Carrie, and all chat room. Why are you in the hospital, Michael? Was that shoulder surgery? I can't remember. Bob Connors with a $1 contribution. Bob, again, a very frequent contributor here. And thank you, Bob, for all you've done. And hopefully we'll be building a computer. Bob is ordering some parts, and I look forward to building that computer live for Bob here on the YouTube channel in the weeks ahead. There's Tech Deals. I haven't seen Tech Deals in a while. Hey, Tech Deals, $5 contribution. If you enjoy my content, you probably will like Tech Deals. Very, very, we have more in common than we have different. And I think Tech Deals is much better at explaining some of the technology more thoroughly than I do. I try to jump through stuff pretty quickly. So if you're more interested in why things are set the way they're set, there's valid reasons that I often don't get into, and Tech Deals do a great job there. Not only with that, but just in general, the information they provide is very on par with the kind of information that one professional would give to another. Not so enthusiast-minded, and that's what I like about Tech Deals. They are enthusiasts, but I'm guessing Tech Deals comes from a professional background, because I really appreciate the consideration they give in their advice and practicality versus let's do this because we can. There's an explanation of why. And absolutely, they do stuff because they can, but they make it clear that they, not like most enthusiasts, they say right up front, this is stupid, we don't recommend doing it. We're only doing it because we have a big channel and we have cameras, so we're doing it for show. This is not something you at home should do. It's like Mitch and I, when we do the big beast build, it's a $10,000 build. I tell you guys, this is stupid. This is a complete waste of money, and I have no use for this computer. I'm doing it because I'm a content creator, I'm a computer builder, and I'm looking for something outrageous that will attract views, that will challenge me. And it's been regretfully expensive. It is not returned back anywhere near the expense. And if you see less and less of the big beast build, it's simply because I think I can make the same or more money doing other things and let that other thing sit. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of money, and it's not giving me a lot of payoff. I will see it through and it will get done. In fact, Mitch and I are talking about finishing up the HT that we started because it's very minor to finish that. I got the missing parts that I needed, and finishing up the big beast build so I can get Photo Ray over here to cable manage it. That I can get the bottom of it sent off to Larry in California and he can put wheels on it for me. Once all that's done, you know what I'm going to do with it? No idea. It's just for the entertainment value of it. It serves no purpose other than because I can. I don't do a lot of that here. And now that I've done it and it's not paying me back well, it'll be a long time before I do it again. But I could have taken that $10,000 and I could have bought a down payment on a Tesla. So I want you to see that money comes in and it goes right back into the channel, even if it is ridiculous. I try to not make a habit of it. And that's, again, something I think I have in common with Tech Deals, is that practicality behind the advice and the information offered. And if you like this channel, you should subscribe to them. Check them out. I watch them. I hope you do too. Marty, thank you for your $5 contribution and earlier contribution. Rochester NY87 contributes $20. Says, I remember the day the Cosmos 2 build came out and you did your video in parts then, the anticipation. I started watching it the other night. Those videos were edited. So because they weren't live, I would film a section and I couldn't go too far because if something wasn't shot right or in focus, I'd have to take it back apart and do it again. And so I had to limit how much I did, both because of the time limits that were on YouTube, as well as the time limits in editing required to edit an hour of footage instead of 5 hours of footage to just keep something on the channel. Otherwise, it'd be a month between videos. I could spend 3 weeks off camera filming and getting close-ups and B-roll, and another week or 2 weeks in editing, and then publish this one video you could digest in 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it was. And it just wasn't it was a lot of work. It was a lot of work back then. Doing it live is way better. You just include your mistakes and you just deal with it, and at least you can get more content out there and set expectations appropriately, that all the mistakes that are edited out in most videos would have you believe that these people don't make mistakes. You wouldn't know what their struggles were. They hide them, and it's intentional to efficiently go from start to end in telling a story. But it's really not an honest story. Without seeing the struggles and without seeing the mistakes, you're not fully prepared educationally to endure that experience with the same end result. So I think keeping it live is important, because even professionals make mistakes. The difference is how we react to them, how we respond to them, how we don't give up and we deal with it. And you will again see this very similar style over at Tech Deals. So check them out. And thanks again for Tech Deals. Thanks to Rochester, New York. Watching that video from the Cosmos 2 build was many years ago. I think that was 2013. It was about 8 years ago. So it's cool you've been watching me that long. You've watched me build a lot of computers, apparently. So thank you for that. There's a Mitch Morrison there in the chat, just popping in to say hello, goodbye, I guess. And I think we're caught up. Bob Connor says, sell the big beast to me. I got $1.95 I can spare. Sure, why not? I'll sell you $10,000 for $2. It's a great business model. I'll take two. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. All the contributors. Wait. Rick Szabo says, great info today, Carrie. But I do really have to throw away. But do I have to throw away my new Hyper 212 Black Edition? Say it ain't so. Was yours defective from manufacturing? So the one Hyper 212 had an uneven surface. The black one didn't have that problem. But the way the fan connects onto the radiator, it just falls off. And the back plate is too thick. It's the thickest plastic back plate I have ever seen. And I think it's preventing the motherboard from sitting low enough. I don't think the standoffs are tall enough for it. I mean, it's got to be just, if it's not too big, it's awfully close to being too big. I'm just not comfortable with the way the fan sits, and I'm not comfortable with how fat that back plate is, preventing the board from sitting as flush as it feels like it should be sitting. It should be resting, the motherboard should be resting on the standoffs. You shouldn't have to screw the motherboard down so it bends onto the standoffs. There's something holding that board up too high, and I think it's that back plate. So for me personally, I'm not using those 212s anymore. I'd rather they hit the garbage can. I'm spoiled with much better technology here, and it's just too much work in diagnostics and future work. If those systems ever come back for anything, I'm going to really not look forward to dismantling them. The Scythe and the Noctua coolers, well, up until this recent change, super easy to take off and put back on again. And I don't have any fitment issues with regards to getting the motherboard to sit flat. So I'm sort of done with the Hyper 212 for now. And we'll see if Cooler Master comes back with an improvement, but for now I cannot recommend them. But I'm not responsible for what your choices are. And use whatever you like, obviously. And I know you kind of gave me a little wink and nod there about that, but seriously, whatever works for you is all that matters. It just doesn't hold up to my values, so I won't use it. John Williams says, good night, young man. Oh, it's nice being called a young man. Thank you, John. And Larry out there in California says, Intel Driver Assistant has had me update the video driver 4 times in the last few weeks. Is this normal? Yes, this is normal. Intel has been updating the video driver for a couple of reasons. One is a new video chipset they're making it compatible with, like the Iris stuff, Iris Xe. Then they updated it again for Windows 11 compatibility, and then I think there was some kind of weird bug in it, so they addressed it, and then there was some other update. So you don't have to update every single time there is an update. Look, if Intel's going to come out with 4 updates, you don't know that, back to back to back. You have no idea that's coming. You don't need all 4 of them. You only need the latest one. So if you make it a rule to just do your updates once a month, you don't have to get all the interim updates that occur. As long as you're doing it monthly, you're fine. Now, if you want to stay on top of it and get them as they come out, the consequence of that is they might realize, oops, we left something out, we made a mistake, or we just came out with a new product, we want to make it compatible universally with all their products, so we update it. And so you're going to get update after update after update. There's no way of foretelling if that's going to happen. I mean, I could have told you Windows 11 is coming out, there's going to be a driver update. I mean, I can't say when. And then whether or not that driver update is going to need some fine tuning, probably. So you can choose to grab the updates from Intel every time you see the red dot. No harm in that. But if you're getting sick of it, just do it on the 1st of the month and you'll be fine. And you'll skip all those interim updates and just get the latest one. Master Singleton saying, thank you, Patrick Holcomb. Bob Connor said, I'm glad your day was better than yesterday. Yeah, me too. Thanks, Bob. Days like that are very uncommon, or I wouldn't do this job. I'd just be fed up with it. Not worth it. But yeah, every once in a while, we all have that day, and the difference is mine often get broadcasted live, but it either makes me brave or stupid. I'm not sure. It's a fine line. Michael Dane says the official term I have is endocarditis. Hold on, let me Google that. What is that? Is that from watching too many Kerry Holzman videos? Endocarditis is a life-threatening inflammation of the inner lining of your heart's chambers and valves. Ooh, endocardium. Endocarditis is usually caused by an infection. Oh, that sounds pretty serious, Michael. I hope everything's going okay. I hope you're feeling well, and I hope you're going to get well soon. I mean, you're certainly in the right place for that to occur. Samuel Nasson says, I sent you $1 and $5. Oh, I might have missed one of those, Samuel. Thank you so much. I'm sorry, I sometimes they go by me. So yeah, thanks for speaking up and letting me know. I want to make sure that all the contributors get the credit they deserve, get the acknowledgement that they deserve. Make sure Samuel is blue. Sorry, Samuel. You're blue now. Welcome to the blue group. Rick Sazabo with a $5 contribution says, thank you. I'll try it and see then, but I value your opinion. Well, I'd be looking at Scythe at this point. The Mugen 5 has always been a strong contender right up until Noxua, and then Noxua just blew it, in my opinion, with the redesign of the mounting mechanism. So I'm back over to Mugen 5, and they have it in the traditional $50 silver version, and of course a $10 more black version has just been released, but otherwise appears to be the same exact cooler, and I will evaluate it. Once I receive them, we'll put one in use here, and hopefully it's what I expect it to be. So thank you guys so much for contributing. I appreciate that very much, and not just contributing financially, but just participating in the chat room. Again, I like the interaction. It's something you don't get in other forms of media. You know, try dialing into a radio station talk show. It's just a busy signal, this call screener, and, you know, commercials and interruptions. I really like the natural sort of organic way that we can communicate here, and without that participation, the shows feel a little more like TV. You know what I mean? So it means a lot to me that people come in, even if we disagree about stuff. You know, the difference is it's my show, right? It's my channel, and it's okay to disagree as long as we're not being challenged, I suppose, as far as trying to establish dominance bothers me. But apart from that, exchange of ideas is always healthy. It's always good, and we have a great community here, and we should always be supportive of one another, even when we don't agree. It's okay, as long as we continue to support one another. The Drunk Control contributes $10 and says, you've got the best archives. Well, it's all there, man. All the warts and all the scars are all there, and it shows the process of growth, and it shows that this is normal and expected. It's not to be avoided. It's not to be devalued. It is an important process to experience that exhibits a challenge and an obstacle that keeps it interesting. If everything was always easy, if everything always went smoothly, I probably wouldn't have any motivation to do it. The example I give would be a video game, and the object is to move your character across the screen. That's it. Just move the character across the screen. Nothing to jump over, nothing trying to attack you. It is literally moving the joystick to the right, you win. Does that sound like a game you want to play? Not me. Game has to have challenges and rewards, and that requires failure. And the more you fail and get back up, try again, the more you do that, when you eventually succeed, and you will, the longer it takes you and the harder it is to accomplish, the more sweet the dopamine releases in your head. It's quite addictive. So failure is nothing to fear. All failure is doing is priming the pump, okay? It's priming you. And you get up, and you fail again, and it primes you again. And that pump is building pressure, for lack of a better word. And then you succeed, and you get this dopamine release, which is in direct relation to the anxiety and the level of frustration. But you have to keep going. You can't give up. But you also can't repeat the same mistakes. You have to take a slightly different approach, or maybe a majorly different approach. Just like a video game, there's a level you can't seem to get through, and you keep repeating that level and trying to take it from different angles and different perspectives, even to the point if you have to go online and find a walkthrough and go, okay, there it is. But when you go through that walkthrough and it's spelled out for you and you win, you get past that level, the reward's not so sweet anymore because you didn't do it on your own. It's still like, hey, I got through it, but you lied to yourself and you cheated. You found a shortcut, and it stole from you your own dopamine reward when you did that to yourself. So don't worry about failures and don't worry about mistakes. Without them, life would be incredibly boring. And that roller coaster, that sort of, I'm scared, this is fun, that's usually directly related to how scary something is to how fun it can be. It's pretty bizarre, but jumping out of an airplane at 11,600 feet is something I cannot put into words, but it is one of the most profound experiences I ever had in my life, and very much would love to do it again. It was unlike anything I've ever experienced. There's a realism, there's a reality there that you could die. And so when you don't die, you never feel more alive. It's a weird human condition that we can have a near-death experience and then laugh about it. Or we can have a near-death experience that actually kills us and it's not funny. But the same exact experience with two different endings. One ending is sad and one ending is joy. That baffles me. How the closer we get to death and escape it, the more alive we feel. And I can't help but wonder if there's some other way to feel alive without having to get so close to death. Can we use our free will to be appreciative and have gratitude for what we have now? Or do we have to have a close call and go, oh, whoa, that was close, oh, and you laugh. And you're like, oh, I can't believe I just almost died, right? Because universally that tends to really bring out being alive in people. And I'm just trying to figure out if there's some way that we can establish that without so much risk. But be that as it may, it is what it is. And jumping out of an airplane at nearly over 2 miles in the sky, just free falling for 45 seconds, that's forever. You're just falling forever. 45 seconds of just falling. When in your life have you ever just fallen and not hit anything for 45 seconds? And it's loud and it's chaotic and the wind is blowing, and then you pull the parachute and it's peaceful, it's beautiful, it's quiet, it's serene, and it's calming, and you just go from one extreme to the other. And then you nail that landing and you're like, again. Yeah. So ideally, when you're facing challenges and obstacles in life, you are living, and failing is a very important part to learning. Most of us are unable to learn without failure. We have to have something to compare it to. And very few of us will ever do something well the first time we do it. And that's okay. We start somewhere. When I was born, I didn't know how to walk. I didn't know how to eat. I didn't know how to use a toilet. All right? We all start out that way. And somehow the older we get, the more risk averse we get, the more we want to avoid failure. We start, as we become an adult, we get this disease where we want to avoid failure because it's embarrassing for some reason. We want to avoid mistakes because somehow that means we're stupid. But yet we're all born completely stupid, okay? We are born the same. We have zero knowledge. Some of us have some obstacles and challenges that others don't. They could be physical, they could be mental, but we all have them. And they're usually secret. If we can hide our challenges, our internal struggles, that's what we do. But we all struggle with them, and we all have to learn how to live with them and deal with them, because those are the cards we have. And we didn't even know what cards were when we were born. And now we've got to figure out how to play those cards to find our strengths and to use our weaknesses as a strength. We have to be clever and figure that out. And for each one of us, that's different. And that's what we all have in common, is that we're all different. Think about that one. Thank you for watching. My name's Kerry Holzman. I'll see you all again very, very soon. And until then, bye for now.